Don't miss the awesome Naruto stories my sister creates. Her last channel was hacked, so to stay in the loop, please subscribe to her new channel. It would mean a lot to her, and you won't regret it. Dear Naruto Lemon fans, I'm thrilled to invite all of you to my Boosty channel, where you can enjoy exclusive Naruto Lemon scenes in a comfortable and supportive community. Choose from various subscription tiers, from Mini Lemon to God Lemon, and gain access to unique content tailored just for our fans. Plus, subscribers to over Naruto Lemon and God Lemon will receive special mentions in my videos. Support my channel and dive deeper into the world of Naruto today. Dare! My story. Chapter 1, A New Beginning. The sun was starting to dip below the Hokage mountain, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The streets of Konoha buzzed with the sounds of people finishing their daily tasks. But on top of a small house, a child stood alone, his bright blonde hair ruffled by the wind. His bright blue eyes stared at the village below, but his mind was far away. Naruto Uzumaki, son of Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, and Kurenai Yuhi, felt lost in his own thoughts. There was a lot on his mind, things that didn't make sense. He had always known that Minato was his father, but it wasn't until recently that he started to understand the gravity of the situation. Minato, the hero of Konoha, had returned, not as a spirit, not as a memory, but as his father. And the strangest part? Kurenai, his loving and ever-protective mother, was now Minato's wife. And Naruto? He had become their son in a way that defied everything he thought he knew about family. Naruto! What are you doing up here all by yourself? A voice called from behind him. Naruto turned to see his mother, Kurenai, standing with her hands on her hips, the familiar warm smile on her face. Just thinking, Naruto replied, his tone flat. He wasn't sure if he could explain everything that was swirling in his head. Kurenai walked toward him, her expression softening as she observed him. I know it's been a lot to take in, she said gently, but you're not alone. You have both of us. And we'll help you through this. Naruto's gaze dropped to the village below. I don't know, Mom. Everything's different now. It feels like nothing will ever be the same again. Kurenai crouched beside him, resting a hand on his shoulder. Change is difficult, I know. But it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. We're all still here. We're a family. Naruto blinked, his face softening at her words. Yeah, but... what about him? He motioned towards the village, toward Minato, who had only recently returned from the other side of the shinobi world. I've never really had a father before. I don't even know what to say to him. Kurenai's expression grew thoughtful. Minato, he's trying, Naruto. He always wanted to be there for you. It's just, things didn't turn out how we expected. A silence passed between them. Naruto felt his heart heavy with the weight of his father's legacy. He had always heard about the hero, the fourth Hokage, and he had been proud. But now? Now, he wasn't sure what that meant for him. As if sensing his thoughts, Kurenai squeezed his shoulder. You're not his legacy, Naruto. You're his son. Before Naruto could respond, footsteps echoed from behind, and he turned to see Minato walking toward them. The fourth Hokage's face was kind, but Naruto could see the hint of uncertainty in his eyes. Hey, Naruto, Minato greeted, his voice warm but cautious. He stood a few steps away, unsure of how to approach his son. Naruto frowned, his stomach nodding. Hi, Dad, or... Minato, he stumbled over his words, still not quite used to the reality of having his father back. It felt so surreal. Minato chuckled softly, a hint of sadness in his smile. Yeah, I know. It's weird for me too. But we'll take it slow, alright? I'm not expecting things to be perfect overnight. Naruto didn't respond right away. Instead, he looked back down at the village, trying to process the overwhelming feelings swirling inside him. I've never really had a dad, he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. You're not what I expected. Minato's eyes softened. I never wanted to be a ghost, Naruto. I never wanted you to feel like you had no one. I made the choice to seal the nine tails inside you so that Konoha would be safe, but I also made the choice to protect you, even from afar. But now, I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. Naruto's heart skipped a beat at those words. He had never heard Minato speak so openly before, not about his feelings. The Hokage's voice was steady, but Naruto could hear the emotion underneath, the regret that had followed him all these years. Are you sure about that? Naruto asked, his voice barely a whisper. Kurenai placed a hand on his back. Her voice gentle. Naruto, your father is here now. He's not leaving you again. And neither am I. The words were like a lifeline thrown to him. Despite his confusion and fear, he could feel the warmth of his parents' love surrounding him. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but it was real. Minato stepped closer, placing a hand on Naruto's head in an affectionate, fatherly gesture. You're not alone anymore. We'll figure this out together, one step at a time. Naruto looked up at him, his blue eyes filled with uncertainty. But what about everything else? I'm the son of the fourth Hokage. People are going to expect a lot from me. Kurenai smiled softly, her red eyes filled with understanding. Don't worry about what other people expect, Naruto. You don't have to live up to anyone else's image. Just be yourself. That's enough for us. Minato nodded, his face full of pride. And you're already doing more than enough. You've got your own strength. And that's what matters most. Naruto felt his heart swell. It was the first time in his life that he truly felt seen, truly felt understood. He wasn't just a legacy, a symbol of his father's greatness. He was Naruto Uzumaki, and he was loved, no matter what. For the first time in his life, he smiled, a genuine, wide smile that reached all the way to his eyes. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad, he said, his voice steady now, full of confidence. I'll do my best. I promise. And for the first time in his life, Naruto felt like he truly had a family. Chapter 2, Shadows of the Past. The moon hung low in the sky, its pale light casting a soft glow over the village of Konoha. The streets were empty, save for a few late-night patrols, and the usually loud town seemed quieter than ever. Naruto stood in the middle of the village square, staring up at the Hokage monument. The faces of past Hokages looked down on him, as they always had, but tonight, their gazes felt different. Tonight, the weight of their expectations seemed heavier than ever. Your father was a hero, they seemed to whisper, their stone faces unyielding and cold. You are his legacy. Naruto clenched his fists at his sides, the words stinging more than he cared to admit. He had always known that Minato was a hero. It was something that everyone reminded him of every day. He had heard the stories, how Minato had given his life to protect the village, how he had sealed the nine tails within Naruto's newborn body, how the fourth Hokage was loved by all. But it wasn't the admiration of the villagers that bothered him. No, it was the shadow. The shadow of Minato's greatness, of the immense expectations placed upon him, that made Naruto feel small. He was the son of a legend, the child of the fourth Hokage, and that was something that everyone saw before they saw him. It wasn't fair. Why do I have to live up to his legacy? Naruto muttered, slamming his fist into the stone ground. Why can't I just be me? He was so caught up in his frustration that he didn't notice Kurenai's quiet footsteps approaching behind him. Are you out here again, Kurenai asked softly, her voice cutting through the stillness of the night. Her tone wasn't harsh or angry, just concerned, as it always was when it came to him. Naruto didn't turn around. "What's the point, Mom?" he replied, his voice heavy with bitterness. "Everyone sees me as the fourth Hokage's son. They don't see me. They see a legacy. They expect me to be just like him." Kurenai stepped closer, her footsteps muffled by the night. "You're not your father, Naruto. You never will be. And that's okay. You don't need to be." "I know," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "But what if that's the only thing they ever see when they look at me? What if I can't ever be my own person? What if they never let me be me?" There was a long pause. Kurenai was silent for a moment, as though considering his words carefully. Then, she placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice steady. "You are more than just the child of Minato," she said softly. "You're Naruto Uzumaki. And that's more than enough." Naruto turned to look at her, his eyes filled with doubt. "But it's not enough, is it? People look at me, and they see his face. They see his legacy. No matter what I do, it'll always be his name that everyone remembers. Not mine." Kurenai gave him a reassuring smile, her red eyes glinting in the moonlight. "You're wrong. It's true that people will see your father in you. They'll see his strength, his courage, his kindness. But that doesn't mean you have to walk in his shadow. You can carve your own path. You don't need to be defined by his reputation." Naruto was silent for a moment, processing her words. But a question, one that had been on his mind for a long time, still gnawed at him. "What about the 9 tails?" Naruto asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't understand it. Why was I chosen to carry it? Why did it have to be me? Was it just because of who my father was?" Kurenai's expression grew somber, and she took a step closer to him. "The 9 tails, that's a burden, one you didn't ask for. But you've carried it all these years, even though it was never your fault. It's not a mark of who you are, it's simply a part of your past." "But I don't remember any of it," Naruto replied, a frown tugging at his lips. "I don't know what happened that night. All I know is what people tell me. That my father sealed the 9 tails inside me, and that's the reason I'm different. That's the reason everyone hates me." "People don't hate you, Naruto," Kurenai said gently, her voice reassuring. "They fear what they don't understand. They fear the power that the 9 tails represents. But that's not your fault. You are not the 9 tails. You are not a monster." "I don't feel like a hero," Naruto whispered, more to himself than to her. "I don't feel like I'm living up to what everyone expects me to be. How am I supposed to live with something like that? How am I supposed to figure out who I am when all I've ever been told is who I'm supposed to be?" Kurenai's eyes softened as she reached out, placing her hand gently on his cheek. "Naruto, it's not about what others expect from you. It's about who you choose to be. You don't have to be your father. You don't have to be anyone else. You just have to be yourself." "But how do I do that?" Naruto asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. "How do I figure out who I really am when everything around me is telling me who I should be?" Kurenai looked at him for a long moment before responding, her voice calm yet firm. "You'll find your way. It won't be easy, and there will be times when you doubt yourself. But in the end, you'll make your own legacy. Not as the son of the 4th Hokage, but as Naruto Uzumaki. And that's all that matters." Naruto looked at her, his eyes filled with a mix of emotions. "But, what if I'm not strong enough? What if I fail?" "You're already strong, Naruto," Kurenai said, her voice gentle but unwavering. "Strength doesn't come from power alone. It comes from the heart. And I know you have a strong one." Naruto took a deep breath, his gaze shifting back to the Hokage monument. For the first time in a long while, he felt something shift within him. Maybe Kurenai was right. Maybe he didn't have to carry his father's legacy. Maybe he could create his own. "I'll try," Naruto said finally, his voice steady. "I'll figure it out. I'll make my own path." Kurenai smiled at him, a proud, reassuring smile. That's all anyone can ask for. Chapter 3, The Family Bond. The bell rang loudly through the classroom, signaling the end of another long day at the Ninja Academy. Naruto sat in his usual seat at the back of the room, his eyes drifting over the familiar faces of his classmates. The sounds of chatter filled the air as the students began to pack their things and prepare to leave for the day. Yet, despite the noise, Naruto felt a hollow silence around him. No one was talking to him, as usual. His gaze lingered on Sasuke, Sakura, and the others as they gathered in small groups. There was always a distance between them and him. It wasn't just that he was the class clown, or that he always tried too hard to get attention. It was the fact that they all knew who he was, who his father was, and that made him different in their eyes. Naruto clenched his fists under the desk, forcing himself to focus on the mission ahead. He didn't want to dwell on the things that bothered him. But even after all this time, the isolation still stung. "Hey, Naruto." Sakura's voice called from the front of the class, but her tone wasn't friendly. She was smiling, but it was forced. "You're supposed to clean up after yourself. You're not the teacher's pet, you know?" Naruto stiffened. The words felt like a slap in the face, but he didn't let it show. He forced a grin onto his face and shrugged. Yeah. I got it, Sakura-chan." She rolled her eyes before turning back to her friends, who were already snickering under their breath. Naruto didn't understand it. He wasn't doing anything wrong. All he wanted was to make friends, to be accepted, to have people to rely on. But instead, he always ended up alone. Sasuke, as usual, kept to himself, his eyes distant and uncaring. He wasn't one for making small talk with anyone, and even though Naruto had tried countless times to get closer to him, it always felt like a dead end. "Don't mind them, Naruto," Kurenai's voice broke through his thoughts. She had entered the classroom quietly, just as she always did when she picked him up after school. Her presence was a comforting one, and it brought a sense of peace that Naruto was grateful for. "Let's go home." Naruto turned to look at his mother, her soft smile easing some of the tension in his chest. Her red eyes met his, and for the briefest moment, everything else faded away. It didn't matter that the other students treated him as an outcast, what mattered was the love that his mother gave him. "Yeah, okay," Naruto said, standing up from his seat and gathering his things. He noticed Kurenai's usual calm expression falter for a moment, though. There was a hint of sadness in her eyes, and it didn't escape Naruto's attention. She saw how the others treated him, and he knew it hurt her. But Kurenai was always strong for him. No matter how bad things got, she was always there to pick up the pieces. And her belief in him, in his worth, kept him going even when the world outside his home seemed harsh. Later that evening, as the sun began to set over Konoha, Naruto sat on the roof of his house, staring out over the village. The wind blew gently through his hair, and he let it soothe him for a moment. "You're up here again, huh?" Minato's voice broke through his thoughts, and Naruto turned to find his father standing on the rooftop, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. His bright blue eyes shone with a sense of warmth that Naruto hadn't seen much of lately. "Yeah, I guess I needed some space," Naruto replied, his voice tinged with frustration. He wasn't sure how to explain everything that had been building up inside him. I don't get it, Dad. Why do they all look at me like I'm some kind of freak?" Minato's expression softened, and he walked over to where Naruto was sitting. He sat down beside him, resting his arm around Naruto's shoulders. "I know it's not easy. I've been watching you, and I know how hard it must be. People fear what they don't understand. And, sometimes, that fear turns into suspicion. It's not fair, but it's something you'll have to live with. But why me? Naruto asked, his voice cracking. Why did I have to be the one who carries the 9 tails? Why do I have to be his son? He gestured to the Hokage monument in the distance, where Minato's face was carved into stone, the symbol of the 4th Hokage forever etched in Konoha's history. Why do I have to live up to all that? Minato's gaze softened, and he pulled Naruto into a tight hug, resting his chin on top of his head. Because you're you, Naruto. Not because you're my son, or because of the 9 tails. You're unique. You have your own strength, your own path to follow. And I know you'll find it. Naruto felt the familiar warmth of his father's embrace, and for the first time in a while, he felt something shift inside him. He didn't know what it was, maybe hope, maybe determination, but it was there. Minato's words, his support, were like a lifeline that he clung to, even as doubts swirled around him. Kurenai stepped out onto the roof. Her presence as comforting as always. She smiled warmly at the sight of father and son sharing a moment of closeness. Naruto, your dinner's ready. You two have been up here long enough. Naruto smiled back, grateful for the support of both his parents. Thanks, Mom, he said, his voice quieter now, as if the weight of the world had shifted off his shoulders, if only a little. As they sat down to eat, Kurenai made sure to keep the conversation light, sharing small stories from her day and asking about Naruto's. Minato, though often reserved, added in his own comments, making sure to keep the atmosphere relaxed. Naruto listened to their voices, feeling the warmth of their family bond wrap around him like a protective shield. It was moments like this that made him feel whole, like he truly had a place in this world, even if the outside world didn't always see him the way he wanted them to. That night, after dinner, Naruto lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling. His father's words echoed in his mind, "You're unique. You have your own strength, your own path to follow." For the first time in a long while, Naruto allowed himself to believe it. The next day, Naruto woke up with a new sense of resolve. When he arrived at the academy, he stood taller, his chest puffed out with pride, not from the reputation of his father, but from the love and strength he had found in his family. As he entered the classroom, he noticed the usual glances and whispers from his classmates. Sakura's dismissive gaze, Sasuke's indifference, and the quiet judgments from the others were still there, lingering in the air. But this time, Naruto didn't shrink back. He didn't retreat into his shell. Instead, he walked to his seat with his head held high. He wasn't the 4th Hokage's son. He wasn't the child of a hero. He was Naruto Uzumaki. And that was enough. Chapter 4, The Birth of a Hero. The sun had barely risen over Konoha, casting its early light on the village and sending long shadows across the training grounds. The cool morning air was filled with the sounds of birds chirping and the distant rustling of leaves. In the quiet of the early hours, only the soft thud of footsteps on the grass could be heard. Naruto stood in the center of the training field, his brow furrowed in concentration. His arms were outstretched, palms facing the sky as he tried to focus his chakra. He was no stranger to the concept of chakra control. It was something every ninja learned from the beginning, something every child at the academy was taught. But for some reason, it had always been difficult for Naruto. The Nine Tails chakra had always been a barrier, something that made his control unpredictable and erratic. But today felt different. Today, he felt more determined than ever. Kurenai stood a few feet away, her arms crossed as she watched him. Her expression was focused, but there was a softness in her eyes, a quiet pride that Naruto could see, even through the veil of his own concentration. "You're doing well," she said, her voice calm and steady, like always. Naruto's eyes twitched, and he tried to steady his breathing. "I can't seem to get it right," he muttered, frustration creeping into his voice. "I've been at this for hours, but it's like my chakra just doesn't listen to me. You've got to trust it, Naruto, Kurenai advised, her voice soothing but firm. Trust yourself and your chakra. You're not trying to force it. You're guiding it. Don't overthink it. Naruto huffed in frustration, his arms trembling slightly from the effort. He tried again, focusing on calming his mind. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, following Kurenai's advice. Slowly, he felt the familiar energy within him start to respond. It wasn't the raw, untamed power of the Nine Tails, this was his own chakra, controlled and refined. The feeling was different, but it was exactly what he needed. Focus, Naruto, Kurenai murmured. Control your chakra, let it flow smoothly. Think of it as a river, steady and calm, not a storm. Naruto took another deep breath, imagining his chakra as a stream of water flowing freely through his body. He focused on the sensation, feeling the flow of energy through his limbs. Slowly, the trembling in his arms faded, and the pressure in his palms softened. A spark of excitement lit up his chest as he felt the chakra settle into place. I think I've got it, Naruto said, a grin spreading across his face as he opened his eyes and looked at his mother. Kurenai smiled, her gaze softening with pride. Good. Keep it steady. You're doing great. But before Naruto could say anything else, a voice interrupted them. Impressive, Naruto. Naruto turned quickly, and his heart skipped a beat when he saw Minato standing at the edge of the field, watching him with a proud smile. His father's presence was always reassuring, but it also came with a weight of expectations that Naruto sometimes struggled to live up to. Still, Minato's words carried a sense of pride that filled Naruto with warmth. You're making progress, Minato continued, stepping closer to the training ground. I'm impressed with how well you're focusing. Chakra control is essential, not just for technique, but for understanding your limits. You're starting to show real potential. Naruto's chest swelled with pride. Thanks, Dad. It feels different. Like I finally understand what you and Mom have been telling me. Minato nodded, his blue eyes filled with warmth. It's all about understanding your own power, Naruto. The path of a ninja isn't just about physical strength, it's about mastering your mind and your chakra. You've got the foundation down, now it's time to build on it. Kurenai stepped forward, her voice steady and encouraging. This is just the beginning, Naruto. We're going to work together, all of us. I'll help you refine your skills, and your father will guide you on the more advanced techniques. Naruto looked between them, feeling a surge of excitement. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he had a purpose. He wasn't just training to meet expectations or trying to prove himself to others. This time, he was training for himself, to become a better ninja, to become someone who could protect the people he loved. I'm ready, Naruto said with newfound determination. Let's do this. Over the next few weeks, Naruto trained tirelessly under the guidance of Kurenai and Minato. Mornings were spent working on chakra control, with Kurenai's steady guidance helping him refine his technique. He learned to balance the flow of his chakra, feeling it settle within his body, moving through him with a fluid grace that was both natural and powerful. The control was still a challenge, but it was no longer an insurmountable one. Every day, Naruto felt himself getting stronger, his sense of balance and focus growing with each passing hour. In the afternoons, Minato would take over. The fourth Hokage was a man of few words, but when he spoke, his presence was commanding. He pushed Naruto beyond his limits, teaching him how to harness his chakra in ways he had never imagined. They practiced simple techniques at first, basic elemental jutsu, such as fire style and wind style, which were manageable with his growing control. But it wasn't the techniques that had the greatest impact on Naruto, it was the way Minato taught him to think. His father showed him how to read the battlefield, how to stay calm under pressure, and how to use strategy in combat. Minato didn't just teach him jutsu, he taught him the heart of being a ninja. You don't need to be the strongest fighter in the world, Naruto, Minato would say as they took a break, sitting on the grass together. What matters is being the most strategic. A ninja who can think on their feet, who can read the flow of battle, is a ninja who can change the tide of war. Naruto absorbed every word. He was beginning to realize that being a hero didn't mean being the strongest or the most famous. It meant being someone others could rely on, someone who knew how to protect those they cared about. One evening, after a long day of training, Naruto collapsed onto the porch of their house, exhausted but fulfilled. Kurenai and Minato joined him, sitting down beside him, their expressions filled with pride. "You did well today," Kurenai said, ruffling his hair affectionately. Minato nodded in agreement. "You've come a long way. But remember, this is just the beginning, Naruto. Keep pushing yourself, and you'll keep growing stronger." Naruto looked up at the sky, his chest swelling with pride and determination. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he was on the right path. The weight of his father's legacy was still there, but it didn't feel so heavy anymore. He wasn't just the son of the fourth Hokage, he was Naruto Uzumaki, and he was ready to carve his own path. "I won't let you down," he said, his voice full of conviction. Kurenai smiled warmly at him. "We know you won't." And in that moment, Naruto realized that he wasn't just training to meet others' expectations. He was training to become the person he wanted to be, the person he could be proud of. And with the support of his parents, he knew that he was one step closer to becoming the hero he always dreamed of. Chapter 5, Training Under the Moonlight. The moon hung high in the night sky, casting a silvery light over the forest that lay just outside the village's boundaries. The quiet rustling of leaves and the distant call of nocturnal creatures created an atmosphere of calm, yet there was an air of quiet intensity in the clearing where Naruto stood. His eyes were focused, his body relaxed but ready. He had been training hard all day, chakra control, elemental jutsu, physical conditioning, and yet, here he was, preparing for something entirely different. Tonight was special. Tonight, Kurenai had decided it was time for him to learn the art of genjutsu. It wasn't the first time she had mentioned genjutsu, but Naruto had always shied away from it. After all, illusions seemed more like tricks than real techniques. He had never been particularly interested in mental manipulation, preferring the straightforward approach of physical combat or elemental attacks. But Kurenai had convinced him. She had explained that genjutsu wasn't just about illusions, it was about controlling the mind, breaking through psychological barriers, and understanding the power of perception. And if there was one thing Naruto knew, it was that understanding others' perceptions was key to breaking the walls around him. Kurenai stood a few paces away, her eyes glowing faintly under the moonlight. Her presence was calm, collected, and as always, Naruto felt a sense of safety in her company. She was more than just a mother figure to him, she was a teacher, a mentor, and a guide in this difficult journey of becoming the ninja he always dreamed of being. "Are you ready, Naruto?" Kurenai's voice was soft but filled with purpose. Her gaze was steady as she watched him with an air of patience, waiting for his response. Naruto nodded, his heart racing with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. "Yeah. I'm ready." "Good," Kurenai said, taking a step forward. Genjutsu is not a jutsu that can be learned overnight. It requires patience, focus, and most importantly, control over your own mind. If you can master this, you'll be able to manipulate others' perceptions, disrupt their senses, and control the flow of battle. But you must first learn how to control yourself. Naruto's gaze shifted from Kurenai to the trees around them. The shadows danced in the moonlight, their forms flickering in the breeze. His heart thudded louder, but his excitement overpowered his fear. This was new, this was different, and he couldn't wait to see where it would take him. Kurenai smiled softly, noticing his nervous energy. Genjutsu is about mental focus, Naruto. The first step is to clear your mind. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine yourself in a place of complete stillness. Focus only on the moment. Block out everything else. Naruto followed her instructions, closing his eyes and breathing deeply. At first, his thoughts were a whirlwind of noise, of memories, of frustrations. He thought about the way people looked at him in the village, the way they spoke of his father as if he were a legend, someone Naruto could never hope to be. He thought about the 9 tails sealed inside him, the power that was both a gift and a curse. But slowly, his breathing deepened, and with each exhale, he felt the noise fade. His mind started to quiet, and in that space of silence, he could feel his chakra settle into place. It wasn't forceful, it wasn't rushed. It simply was, peaceful, steady, controlled. Good, Kurenai said, her voice breaking through the silence. Now, focus on me. Visualize the world around you as I present it. Keep your mind open, but firm. Do not let your thoughts wander. Naruto's mind sharpened. He could feel his surroundings, even with his eyes closed, the rustling leaves, the cool wind on his skin, the smell of the earth. But then, something shifted. It was subtle at first, a slight change in the air around him, but it was enough to make him hesitate. Kurenai's presence, no, her perception, was slowly seeping into his mind. He could feel her influence. Focus, he told himself. Focus. Without warning, the world around him began to change. The gentle breeze turned into a violent gust of wind, and the trees in front of him began to sway, their branches twisting unnaturally, their shadows stretching far beyond their reach. He blinked, startled by the sudden distortion. But Kurenai's voice calmed him. This is a basic genjutsu, she explained, her tone soft yet firm. You're seeing a change in your environment, but none of it is real. Focus on your chakra. Focus on the illusion. Let it wash over you without allowing it to control you. Naruto swallowed, forcing his thoughts back into alignment. He could feel the illusion wrapping itself around his senses, his vision, his hearing, his touch. But this time, it wasn't overwhelming. This time, he felt like he had a grip on it. Now, break it, Kurenai instructed. Naruto's heart pounded as he concentrated, pushing his chakra outward. He focused on the distortion around him, the twisted trees, the unnaturally violent wind, and he reached for it, pulling at the threads of the illusion with every ounce of his willpower. The world seemed to push back, resisting him, but he refused to give in. His chakra flared, the surge of power coursing through him as he mentally willed the illusion to disappear. And then, with a sudden clarity, the world around him snapped back to normal. The wind died down, the trees stopped their unnatural movements, and the forest returned to its peaceful, still state. Naruto opened his eyes, breathing heavily. His hands were slightly trembling, but he felt a surge of pride. He had done it. He had broken the illusion. For a moment, he had felt the power of control, not just over his chakra, but over his very perception of reality. That was excellent, Kurenai said, stepping toward him with a proud smile. You're already learning how to control not just your chakra, but your mind as well. You've got real potential. Naruto grinned, his heart swelling with pride. I did it. I actually did it. Kurenai nodded, her smile warm but thoughtful. You did. But this is just the beginning. Genjutsu isn't about raw power. It's about subtlety, control, and perception. You've taken the first step, but there's a long road ahead. Naruto's excitement was tempered by the realization that this was only the start. But even so, he could feel a shift inside him. He wasn't just training his body anymore. He was training his mind, learning how to use his chakra in ways he hadn't imagined. I'll keep training, he said, determination burning in his eyes. I'll master this. I'll make sure nothing gets in my way. Kurenai smiled at him, her eyes filled with pride. That's the spirit, Naruto. keep pushing forward. We'll take it one step at a time. As the moonlight bathed the training ground, Naruto stood tall, the night air cool against his skin. He had taken his first steps into a new world, one of discipline, control, and perception. It wasn't just about being strong anymore. It was about being sharp, being clever, and being able to read the battlefield in ways no one else could. With his mother by his side, and his father's teachings guiding him, Naruto felt like he could face anything. He was beginning to realize that he wasn't just training to become a hero. He was training to become something more, something no one could expect. Chapter 6, First Mission. The sun was rising slowly over the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of pink and gold. The village of Konoha was waking up, the streets gradually filling with people as they started their day. It was a calm morning, but for Naruto, today was anything but calm. Today marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life, his very first mission as a ninja. He stood in front of the Hokage monument, staring at the stone faces of the past Hokages. The weight of their eyes seemed heavier than ever, but it wasn't the pressure of their legacy that weighed on him today, it was the weight of the mission ahead. Naruto's heart was pounding in his chest. He had been trained for years, learning chakra control, jutsu, and the art of strategy. But this mission, this was the real test. This was the moment when he would prove to everyone, and more importantly, to himself, that he could be more than just the son of a legend. "Alright, Naruto, no more distractions," he muttered to himself, trying to shake off his nerves. He was ready for this. He had to be. Just as he was about to take a step forward, a voice called out behind him. "Are you ready, Naruto?" Naruto turned to see Kurenai walking up to him, her expression calm but filled with pride. "You'll do great," she said softly, her voice steady as always. "Just remember what we've practiced. Focus and trust your instincts." Naruto nodded, trying to steady his breathing. He wasn't nervous, he was just excited. This was his chance to prove himself. "Yeah, I've got this," he said, more to himself than to her. But Kurenai's smile reassured him, and he felt a sense of peace wash over him. No matter what happened, he knew his mother believed in him. Kurenai gave him a final nod before stepping aside. "I'll be waiting for you when you return. Now, go." Naruto turned and ran toward the gathering point, where his teammates were waiting. A small group of young ninjas had been assigned to the mission, including Sasuke, Sakura, and two others from his class, Shino Aburame and Hinata Hyuga. As Naruto approached, Sasuke nodded at him, his usual indifferent expression barely changing. Sakura, on the other hand, shot him a sharp look. "You're late, Naruto," she said, crossing her arms. "Do you know how important this mission is?" Naruto grinned sheepishly. "Sorry, I was just thinking about some things." "Focus, Naruto," Shino said in his usual quiet voice, his gaze unreadable behind his dark glasses. Hinata gave a small smile in Naruto's direction, her shy nature still evident, but she said nothing. Naruto returned her smile with his own, feeling a bit more at ease. Their sensei, a jounin named Yamato, stepped forward, a serious expression on his face. "Alright, everyone, this is a reconnaissance mission to the outskirts of the Land of Fire. We'll be observing a group of bandits who have been causing trouble for nearby villages. Your objective is simple: gather information, avoid direct combat unless necessary, and report back." Naruto nodded, trying to take in every detail. His heart was racing, but he was determined not to show his nerves. He had a mission to complete, and he wasn't going to mess it up. "Stay sharp," Yamato continued. "Work together as a team. We don't know what we'll be up against, but we need to be prepared for anything." The group set off toward the edge of the village, traveling through the dense forests surrounding Konoha. Naruto kept his senses alert, scanning the trees for any signs of danger. His thoughts wandered for a moment, but he quickly snapped himself back into focus. This was his chance to prove himself, not just to his sensei, but to his father. He wasn't going to disappoint anyone. As the day wore on, the team moved deeper into the forest. The sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the path. They had yet to encounter any threats, but Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. His instincts told him something was off. "Sasuke, what do you think?" Naruto asked quietly, glancing at his teammate. Sasuke barely spared him a glance. "Stay focused. We'll find out soon enough." Naruto nodded, trying to ignore the unease building in his chest. They continued forward. The dense trees growing thicker as they neared the bandits' suspected hideout. And then, without warning, the ground beneath them rumbled. Naruto's eyes widened as he heard the sound of footsteps approaching rapidly from behind. He spun around just in time to see a group of 5 armed bandits charging at them, their eyes wild with aggression. "Get ready!" Yamato shouted, pushing them all into action. The bandits were closing in fast, and Naruto's heart raced. He had never been in a real battle before, but now wasn't the time to hesitate. He reached for his kunai, but before he could throw it, one of the bandits lunged at him. "Watch out!" Hinata shouted, but it was too late. Naruto ducked just in time, the bandit's blade missing him by inches. He quickly regained his balance and jumped back, narrowly avoiding another slash. The battle was on. "Stay close," Yamato commanded, engaging the bandits himself. "Work together and watch each other's backs." Naruto didn't need to be told twice. He darted forward, his mind clear. He wasn't going to just stand there and let his teammates fight alone. He had to do his part. "Wind style, gale palm," Naruto shouted, thrusting his hands forward. A strong gust of wind shot from his palms, knocking one of the bandits off his feet. It wasn't a powerful jutsu, but it was enough to buy him some time. Sasuke darted in with precision, his Sharingan activated as he swiftly took down 2 more bandits. Sakura, though hesitant at first, used her chakra-enhanced strength to disarm another. But Naruto was still struggling. The adrenaline of the moment had clouded his focus, and he realized that he had overextended himself. A bandit charged at him, and he barely managed to block the attack with his kunai. The force pushed him back, his foot slipping on the dirt. In that instant, he heard Kurenai's voice in his mind, "Focus, trust yourself, trust your instincts." Naruto closed his eyes for a moment, blocking out the chaos around him. He felt the wind, the movement of his chakra, and the rhythm of the battle. With renewed clarity, he shifted his stance, sidestepping the bandit's attack and countering with a quick series of strikes that left his opponent disarmed and stunned. The battle ended shortly after that, with the bandits either captured or fleeing the area. Yamato surveyed the scene, his expression unreadable as he turned to face his students. "Impressive, Naruto," Yamato said, his voice tinged with approval. "You may have made a few mistakes, but you learned quickly. That's the sign of a good ninja." Naruto smiled, feeling a sense of pride swelling in his chest. It wasn't perfect, but he had done it. He had acted quickly and learned from his mistakes. As they made their way back to Konoha, Naruto's heart was still racing, but this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from the thrill of knowing he had made a difference. When they returned to the village, Minato was waiting for them, a proud smile on his face. "You did well, Naruto," he said, ruffling his son's hair. "I knew you had it in you." Naruto grinned from ear to ear, the weight of his father's praise filling him with an overwhelming sense of pride. Today, he had taken his first step into the world of real missions, and for the first time, he truly felt like a ninja. Chapter 7, The Struggle for Acceptance. The streets of Konoha were bustling with activity as the villagers went about their daily lives. The morning sun bathed the village in a warm light, but for Naruto, there was no warmth to be found. As he walked through the village square, his usual bravado and energy felt distant, replaced by a weight in his chest that had been growing heavier with each passing day. Despite his progress, despite the praise he had received from his sensei and his father, the villagers still looked at him with suspicion and disdain. It was as if no matter how hard he worked, he could never escape the shadow of the Nine Tails. Naruto walked past a group of villagers talking animatedly, their voices barely more than whispers in the crowded square. As he passed, he caught a few snippets of their conversation, and though he tried to ignore it, the words hit him like a slap. "I don't trust him," one villager said, shaking their head. "He's the son of the fourth Hokage, but he's still the Nine-Tails vessel. How can we ever truly trust someone like him?" Another voice joined in, more pointed than the last. "He'll never be like his father. He can never replace the Hokage, not with that demon inside him." Naruto's heart clenched. The words stung more than he could express. He stopped in his tracks, his mind swirling with confusion and frustration. No matter what he did, no matter how much he tried to be more than just the son of a hero, he was still just the container for the Nine Tails. He would never escape that, would he? He could feel the familiar heat rising in his chest, the anger that threatened to burst through, but instead of letting it consume him, he did his best to push it down. There was no point in reacting. He had heard it all before. He was used to the looks, the whispered conversations behind his back. But today felt different. Today, it hurt more than usual. Naruto clenched his fists at his sides and continued walking, his steps heavier than before. He tried to keep his head high, but the weight of the villagers' words followed him, like an invisible chain dragging behind him. Later that evening, Naruto returned home, his usual energy gone. He walked through the front door and saw Kurenai sitting at the dining table, looking over some scrolls. The moment she saw him, she smiled, but her expression faltered when she noticed the look on his face. "Hey, Naruto," she said softly, setting the scrolls aside. "How was your day?" Naruto didn't answer immediately. He simply dropped his bag to the floor and slumped down into a chair. "Same as always," he muttered, staring at the floor. Kurenai's eyes softened, and she sat down beside him, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "What's bothering you?" she asked, her voice calm and soothing. Naruto let out a heavy sigh, his shoulders slumping further. It's the villagers," he said quietly. "No matter what I do, they still look at me like I'm the demon. Like I'm not even really me. I've been training hard, working to prove that I'm more than just the Nine Tails, but it feels like it's never enough. They still just see the monster inside me." Kurenai's expression grew serious, her gaze soft but filled with understanding. She took a moment before speaking, carefully choosing her words. "Naruto, you've been through more than most people could ever imagine. You carry a burden that no child should ever have to bear, and yet, you keep going. You keep moving forward. That's what makes you stronger than anyone else." Naruto's gaze met hers, but his expression was filled with doubt. "But that doesn't change how they see me, Mom. They don't see what I'm trying to do. They don't care about all the training and all the things I've done to prove that I'm not the Nine Tails. All they see is the monster inside." Kurenai gently lifted Naruto's chin, making him look her in the eyes. Her expression was firm, yet loving. "Naruto, you don't need their approval. You don't need anyone's approval. You've already proven your worth. You've trained harder than anyone I know. You've faced your demons, both the one inside you and the ones in the world, and you've come out stronger for it. But I don't want to just be strong. I want to be accepted," Naruto said, his voice cracking slightly. "I want them to see me. To see me, not just the son of the Hokage, not just the Nine Tails vessel." Kurenai's eyes softened, and she wrapped her arms around him, pulling him into a warm embrace. "I see you, Naruto," she whispered. "And your father sees you. And the people who matter will see you for who you are. Not for your lineage, not for what's inside you, but for who you choose to be. And you've already chosen to be someone worthy of respect. Naruto closed his eyes, his heart heavy with emotion. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that one day, the villagers would see him for who he truly was. But the pain of their rejection was hard to shake. He pulled back slightly, looking at his mother with a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. You really think they'll ever see me for me? I know they will, Kurenai replied, her voice filled with conviction. It may take time, but eventually, they'll understand. And even if they don't, it won't matter. You're not defined by the opinions of others. You're defined by the choices you make, and I know you're making the right ones. Naruto let out a long breath, the weight in his chest easing just slightly. Kurenai's words were always the comfort he needed, even when everything else seemed uncertain. Thanks, Mom, he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. I don't know what I'd do without you. Kurenai smiled warmly and gently tousled his hair. You'll do just fine, Naruto. You're stronger than you realize. And no matter what, I'll always be here for you. Always. For the first time that day, Naruto felt the weight of the villagers' words lift just a little. He didn't know if they would ever truly accept him. But in that moment, it didn't matter. What mattered was that he had the love and support of the one person who truly understood him, and that was enough. As the night wore on, Naruto lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind was still filled with doubts, but Kurenai's words kept coming back to him. He didn't need anyone else's approval. He had a family who loved him, and that was all that mattered. Tomorrow would be another day, another challenge. But as long as he had Kurenai by his side, he knew he could face whatever came his way. Chapter 8, The Family Secrets. The warm evening breeze swept through the open window, rustling the curtains in Naruto's room. He sat on the edge of his bed, his hands gripping the edges of the mattress as his thoughts swirled in a storm of questions. He had been feeling it for a while. There was more to his story, more to his family's past that he had yet to understand. Kurenai had always been a guiding presence, but there was something about Minato's silence that left him uneasy. There were things his father had never spoken of, things that, Naruto felt, might finally be coming to light. It had been a quiet evening in the house. Kurenai was preparing dinner, and Minato had been unusually distant. It wasn't that he was cold, quite the opposite. Minato's quiet, almost contemplative nature had become even more apparent these past few weeks. Naruto had noticed the way his father would often look at him, as though there was something he wanted to say but couldn't quite find the words. Tonight, however, it seemed Minato was finally ready to speak. Naruto, Minato's voice broke through his thoughts. Can we talk? Naruto turned to see his father standing in the doorway, his figure framed by the light from the hallway. Minato's face was serious, but there was a warmth in his eyes that Naruto had come to recognize, a sign that this conversation was important. Yeah, sure, Dad, Naruto replied, standing up from the bed. His heart raced with anticipation. Was this it? Was this the moment when everything would finally make sense? Minato stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. He took a deep breath, as though gathering the strength to share something he had kept buried for a long time. Naruto waited, unsure of what to expect. I've been keeping something from you, Minato said quietly. Something about your mother, and about your heritage. I think it's time you knew the truth. Naruto's mind raced. His mother's past. What was Minato talking about? He had always known that there were things about his family that didn't add up, but he had never pressed for answers. Now, the weight of Minato's words seemed to hang in the air, thick with significance. Minato walked over to the window, staring out into the distance, his back to Naruto. Kurenai isn't just your mother, Naruto. She's much more than that. She has sacrificed so much for you, for the village, and for me. I've been hesitant to tell you the full truth because I didn't want you to feel the weight of it all, but I can't keep this from you any longer. Naruto felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The tension in the room was palpable, and his mind raced with 1,000 questions. What do you mean? What kind of sacrifices? Minato finally turned to face him. His expression somber. Kurenai is the one who chose to be with me. But she also made a choice when you were born. A choice to protect you from a threat that had already begun to loom over the village long before you were born. Naruto blinked in confusion. What kind of threat? What are you talking about, Dad? Minato walked over and sat down on the bed next to Naruto. The Nine Tails. You know that it was sealed inside you when you were born, but what you don't know is that Kurenai was the one who made the choice to have you become the vessel. It was her idea, her decision to give you the protection that would allow the village to survive. Naruto's heart pounded in his chest. His mind was racing, trying to process the words his father was saying. Wait, what? You mean Mom knew? She chose this for me? Minato nodded, his face etched with sorrow. She did. When the Nine Tails attacked the village, we couldn't risk losing control of the beast. We needed a way to keep it contained, and Kurenai, she volunteered. She knew the risks. She knew the pain it would cause her, and she still chose to be the one to carry that burden, by having you become the host. Naruto's mind was spinning. His chest tightened, and the room suddenly felt too small. But why didn't you tell me this sooner? His voice wavered with emotion, a mixture of confusion, hurt, and anger. Why didn't you tell me that Mom chose this for me? Minato placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, his touch gentle but firm. I wanted to protect you from the truth for as long as I could. I didn't want you to carry the weight of your mother's sacrifice on your shoulders. But you're growing up, Naruto. And you deserve to know the truth. You need to understand what your mother did for you. And what she gave up. Naruto sat back against the wall, trying to process everything he had just learned. His heart was racing, and a feeling of numbness began to settle over him. He had always known that his life was different, that his connection to the Nine Tails set him apart from others. But to learn that his mother had knowingly chosen this path for him, it was a lot to take in. Just as the weight of the conversation began to settle in, Kurenai entered the room. She looked at the two of them, her face softening when she saw the way Minato was looking at Naruto. Minato, maybe it's better if, Kurenai started, but Minato interrupted her gently. No, Minato said softly, his gaze never leaving Naruto. He needs to know. He deserves to know what his mother did for him. Kurenai's eyes flicked to Naruto, and she walked over to him, kneeling down beside him. Naruto, I know this is hard to understand. It was hard for me, too, when I made that choice. But it was the right thing to do. I couldn't let you grow up without the chance to have a life, without a future. I couldn't let the Nine Tails destroy everything we had built. And I didn't want you to have to carry the burden of it alone. Naruto looked at his mother, his eyes filled with a mix of emotions. But why me? Why did you have to choose me? Why couldn't I just live a normal life? Kurenai reached out and gently took his hand. You were the one who could carry it, Naruto. You were the only one who could handle it. And while I may have made the choice to have you bear this burden, I did it because I believed in you. You're stronger than you know. You're not defined by the Nine Tails. You're defined by the choices you make, and I know you'll make the right ones. Naruto's heart swelled with emotion as he heard his mother's words. The weight of her sacrifice, the love behind her choice, it was overwhelming. But as he looked into her eyes, he understood. She had done this because she believed in him. She had made the ultimate sacrifice, not just for the village, but for him. I'll make you proud, Mom, Naruto said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. Kurenai smiled warmly, her eyes filled with pride. You already do, Naruto. Every single day. Minato stood up and placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, his voice filled with quiet conviction. You are more than just the son of the fourth Hokage, Naruto. You are your own person. And I know that no matter what challenges lie ahead, you'll be ready to face them. With the strength of your mother's love, and the legacy of our family, there's nothing you can't overcome. Naruto felt a sense of clarity wash over him. The path ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, he felt ready to walk it. With his parents by his side, with their sacrifices and their love, he knew he could face whatever came next. He wasn't just the son of the fourth Hokage. He wasn't just the host of the Nine Tails. He was Naruto Uzumaki. And that was enough. Chapter 9, Unseen Threats. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the village. The sounds of the bustling streets of Konoha had faded into a quiet hum as evening settled in. Naruto walked alongside Kurenai, enjoying the calm of the late afternoon. They had just finished another day of training. Naruto's progress with Genjutsu had impressed her once again, and they were now making their way home. But as they turned a corner near the village gates, a sudden feeling of unease washed over Naruto. He couldn't quite explain it, but something felt off. His instincts, honed through years of training, told him that something was wrong. Mom, do you feel that? Naruto asked, his voice low. Kurenai's pace slowed, and she turned her head to look at him. Her expression had shifted, a subtle change that Naruto had learned to recognize. It was the look she got when she was sensing something out of the ordinary. I do, Kurenai said, her voice steady but tense. Stay close, Naruto. They continued walking, but Naruto's sense of unease only grew stronger. It wasn't just the feeling of being watched, it was something more. Something darker. His hand instinctively rested on his kunai pouch, his fingers tightening around the hilt. Without warning, a figure appeared from the shadows ahead of them, emerging from behind an old building. The man's face was obscured by a mask, and his presence radiated hostility. Naruto's instincts screamed at him to be ready. Mom, who is that? Naruto asked, his voice tight with suspicion. Kurenai's face hardened, her eyes narrowing as she assessed the figure. He's from my past. A threat I thought was gone. She stepped in front of Naruto protectively, her hand resting on the hilt of her katana. Stay behind me, Naruto. I'll handle this. The man stepped closer, his eyes flickering with malice as he removed the mask from his face. His features were sharp, his expression cold. The familiar sight of his face made Naruto's blood run cold. You've grown, Kurenai, the man said with a twisted smile. But I see you haven't forgotten me. Naruto's mind raced. The man's presence was suffocating, and the air felt heavy with danger. Who is he, Mom? He asked, his voice shaky, but determined. Kurenai's voice was low, controlled, as she spoke, though Naruto could hear the edge of anger in her tone. This is Ryota. He was a member of the group I once worked with. He was dangerous, manipulative, and ruthless. I thought I had put him behind me when I left that life. But it seems he's come back, and this time, he's targeting you. Naruto's eyes widened. Me? Why? Ryota laughed, a cruel sound that sent a chill through the air. Why? Because you're the son of the fourth Hokage. You're a symbol of power, a threat that needs to be eliminated. I was hired to bring you down. Naruto's anger flared. He wasn't just going to stand by and let this guy hurt anyone, let alone his mother. He gripped his kunai tighter, his body tensing. You'll have to go through me first, he muttered, more to himself than to Ryota. Kurenai turned quickly, her voice sharp. Stay back, Naruto. He's too dangerous. I can handle this. But Naruto wasn't listening. He had already made up his mind. He had come so far, learned so much, and he wasn't about to let anyone hurt his family. He wasn't the scared child who had been pushed around anymore. He was a ninja, and he had learned to stand on his own. "No, Mom," Naruto said, his voice filled with determination. "I can fight. I'm not just some kid you need to protect." With a burst of speed, Naruto dashed toward Ryota, throwing a kunai at him. Ryota easily dodged the attack with a swift movement, but that was all Naruto needed. His distraction gave him the opening to get closer. Kurenai's eyes widened, a mix of concern and pride flashing in her gaze. "Naruto, no." But it was too late. Naruto was already in motion, his mind clear and focused as he channeled chakra into his legs, launching himself at Ryota with a swift kick. Ryota blocked the strike with his forearm, but Naruto's momentum sent him skidding back, giving Naruto a chance to close the distance. "You're fast," Ryota commented, his voice cold. "But not fast enough." With a flick of his wrist, Ryota summoned a hidden blade from under his sleeve, and he swung it at Naruto in a deadly arc. But Naruto had already learned how to read the flow of combat, and he ducked just in time, the blade grazing the air above him. Naruto didn't hesitate. He moved quickly, using the distraction to launch a series of jutsu. Wind style, gale palm. He struck Ryota with a powerful gust of wind that pushed him back several feet, but Ryota recovered quickly, grinning all the while. "You're persistent. I'll give you that," Ryota said, his voice dripping with disdain. "But it's not enough." Naruto's breathing was steady, and his eyes were locked on his opponent, his body tense and ready. He had faced challenges before, but this felt different. This wasn't just about proving his strength, it was about protecting the people he loved. He wasn't going to back down. Just as Ryota lunged forward with the blade raised, Kurenai intervened, stepping between them. Her katana was drawn, and she moved with a fluidity and precision that left Ryota no room to react. "Kurenai!" Ryota spat, stepping back in shock as she blocked his strike with ease. "You've become soft. You think you can protect him?" Kurenai's eyes were steely, her stance unwavering. "I've always protected what matters, Ryota," she said with a quiet fury. "You should have stayed gone." Naruto stood back for a moment, breathing heavily, his mind racing. He couldn't let his mother do all the work. He wasn't just a child anymore. He had learned so much, and now it was time to prove it. He had to trust in his training, in the lessons his mother and father had taught him. He stepped forward, his voice steady. "I'm not going to let you hurt anyone." Ryota's eyes narrowed. "You're a fool, just like your father." Naruto's heart skipped at the mention of Minato, but he didn't hesitate. "I'm nothing like my father," he said, his voice firm. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki. And that's enough." With renewed determination, Naruto focused, channeling his chakra into his body, pushing forward with a burst of speed. He used his wind-based jutsu again, this time sending a more focused, concentrated gust at Ryota's blade, knocking it from his hand. In that moment, Naruto seized the opportunity, rushing forward and landing a solid strike to Ryota's abdomen, pushing him back and off balance. Ryota stumbled but quickly regained his composure, though there was now a hint of frustration in his eyes. "You are stronger than I expected," he growled. But Naruto could see the defeat in his opponent's eyes. Kurenai stepped forward, her katana poised for the final strike. "You've lost, Ryota," she said coldly. "It's over." Ryota glared at them both, but with no escape, he finally surrendered, knowing that he was defeated. Kurenai, with one swift motion, disarmed him completely, ensuring he couldn't fight back. Naruto stood, panting but with a sense of pride growing in his chest. This was his battle as much as it was Kurenai's, and he had faced it head-on. He had proven to himself, and to his mother, that he wasn't a child anymore. Kurenai turned to him, her expression filled with pride. "You did well, Naruto," she said, her voice soft. You've grown. Naruto smiled, feeling a rush of warmth. He wasn't just the son of a Hokage or a vessel for the Nine Tails anymore. He was Naruto Uzumaki, a ninja who could protect the people he loved. And that was enough. Chapter 10, A Father's Legacy. The day was quiet in Konoha, the sun dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows over the village. Naruto walked alone through the village streets, the noise of the bustling marketplace fading as he moved deeper into the quieter parts of town. His mind was far away from the usual antics he would get up to with his friends. Today, something was different, something was weighing heavily on his chest, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being pulled in two directions. The village was filled with life, but Naruto couldn't ignore the nagging thoughts that gnawed at him. Every time he passed a villager, he could feel their eyes on him, some filled with admiration, others with apprehension, but all of them knowing who he was. Who his father was. The son of the fourth Hokage. Naruto could feel the weight of those words more and more lately, and with each passing day, it became harder to ignore. He had proven himself in battle, completed missions, and grown stronger under the guidance of his parents. But with each success, it felt like the expectations of others only grew higher. His father's legacy loomed over him like a mountain, and no matter what Naruto did, he couldn't seem to escape it. He found himself sitting on the edge of a stone bench near the Hokage monument, gazing up at the stone faces of past Hokages. His father's face was carved into the mountain, larger than life, a symbol of strength and leadership. And yet, the more Naruto looked at it, the heavier the weight of his name felt on his shoulders. I'm supposed to live up to that? Naruto muttered to himself, his voice bitter. How? I don't even know who I am sometimes. He slammed his fist into the stone bench, frustration boiling inside him. He had never asked for this. He hadn't chosen to be the son of the fourth Hokage, nor had he asked for the Nine Tails to be sealed inside him. But now that he had these burdens, it seemed like everyone around him expected him to follow in his father's footsteps, to be the hero the village needed. But Naruto wasn't his father. He wasn't sure he could be. You okay, Naruto? Naruto turned at the sound of the familiar voice. Standing nearby was Minato, his father, watching him with that calm and knowing expression Naruto had come to recognize. Minato's smile was soft, but his eyes held something deeper, something Naruto couldn't quite place. I don't know, Naruto replied, looking down at his hands. I've been thinking a lot lately. Everyone expects me to be like you, Dad. I'm supposed to be the next Hokage, just like you. But I don't know if I'm ready for that. Minato sat down beside him, his presence warm and steady. I never expected you to be like me, Naruto, Minato said gently, his voice filled with a quiet strength. I've always wanted you to be yourself. Naruto's brow furrowed in confusion. But, you're the Hokage. You're the one everyone looks up to. I'm supposed to be just like you, right? That's what everyone says. Minato shook his head, his smile never fading. No. I never wanted that for you. I don't want you to carry the weight of my legacy. You have your own path to follow, Naruto. And I'm proud of the person you're becoming. Naruto's heart raced at the words, but he couldn't help the doubt that still lingered. But what if my path doesn't match up to what everyone expects from me? What if I can't live up to being the Hokage? What if I'm just not good enough? Minato placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, his touch firm yet gentle. You're already good enough, Naruto. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. I didn't become Hokage because I was trying to live up to some ideal. I became Hokage because I believed in the village, in the people, and in the future I wanted to build. And I see that same belief in you. You have a strength that comes from your heart, not from trying to be someone you're not. But I don't even know what I want, Naruto admitted, his voice quiet. I want to be strong, I want to protect the people I care about, but I don't know if I can be the hero everyone expects. Minato's eyes softened, his gaze filled with understanding. Naruto, a hero isn't someone who follows a set path. A hero is someone who makes their own choices, someone who stands up for what they believe in. Even when it's hard. Your strength doesn't come from trying to be me. It comes from being yourself. Naruto turned his gaze back to the Hokage monument, his father's face carved into the stone. But this time, it didn't feel as oppressive. Instead, it felt reassuring. Minato's words had found a way into his heart, cutting through the confusion and uncertainty that had clouded his mind. I've spent so much time thinking I had to be like you, Naruto said softly, his voice laced with a mixture of realization and relief. But I think I understand now. I don't have to be anyone else. I just have to be Naruto. Minato smiled warmly, his expression full of pride. That's right, Naruto. And I couldn't be prouder of you. You're going to do amazing things, not because you're living in anyone's shadow, but because you have your own light. Naruto stood up from the bench, feeling a surge of energy in his chest. The weight that had been pressing on him for so long had lifted, just a little. He wasn't going to live in his father's shadow anymore. He was going to walk his own path, and that was enough. Thanks, Dad, Naruto said, his voice filled with gratitude. I think I'm ready to start figuring it out. My own way. Minato stood up beside him, his hand resting on Naruto's shoulder. Take it one step at a time, Naruto. And remember, no matter where your path leads, I'll always be proud of you. Naruto looked up at the Hokage monument one last time. His father's face still loomed over him, but it no longer felt like an impossible standard to live up to. It was a reminder of what he could become, on his own terms. And with that, Naruto began to walk away, his heart lighter, his mind clearer. He was ready to forge his own future, and he would do it as Naruto Uzumaki. Not the son of the fourth Hokage, but Naruto, someone who would become a hero in his own way. Chapter 11, New Bonds. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden light over Konoha as Naruto walked through the village with a spring in his step. Today was different. It wasn't just about training or missions, it was about something more personal. For the first time in a long while, Naruto felt like he was starting to find his place in the village. He was no longer the outcast, the village's scapegoat. Slowly, he was forging deeper bonds with the people around him, bonds that went beyond mere alliances or mutual respect. And that included his classmates, Sasuke, Sakura, and even Shikamaru, Choji, and the others. Naruto had always struggled to fit in, especially with Sasuke, who had always been aloof, or Sakura, who had once looked at him with disdain. But over time, they had all grown closer, their shared experiences on missions and in the academy forging a deeper connection. But it was the quiet, unspoken moments that made Naruto realize just how far they had all come. He passed by a small training ground where Sasuke was practicing his techniques, his body moving fluidly with the precision of a master. Naruto slowed his pace, watching Sasuke from a distance. The Uchiha was known for his aloofness, but Naruto had always admired his discipline, his focus, even if Sasuke never openly acknowledged him. But something had changed recently. Hey, Sasuke! Naruto called out, his voice upbeat and friendly. Got a minute? Sasuke paused in his training, his eyes narrowing slightly as he turned to face Naruto. There was always that subtle flicker of hesitation before Sasuke spoke, but lately, he had been less distant, even more willing to engage. What is it, Naruto? Sasuke asked, his tone neutral but not unkind. Naruto grinned, hands behind his head. I just wanted to ask if you wanted to join us for dinner tonight. Sakura's coming too, and Mom's making something special. Sasuke didn't immediately respond, his gaze flicking over Naruto's face, and then he glanced toward the ground as though thinking. Naruto could see the internal conflict, the reluctance to accept the invitation, but then, to Naruto's surprise, Sasuke simply nodded. Fine. I'll come, he said, his voice as monotone as ever, but there was a subtle shift in his eyes. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make Naruto's chest swell with a sense of accomplishment. Sasuke wasn't exactly the most expressive person, but over time, they had managed to chip away at his walls, slowly bringing him into their circle. Great! Naruto beamed. It'll be awesome. Mom's cooking will knock your socks off, I promise. Sasuke just grunted, a faint smirk appearing on his lips. We'll see about that. As Naruto turned to head home, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of satisfaction. Things were changing, and it wasn't just with Sasuke. The relationships he had once struggled to form were beginning to solidify into something more meaningful, something that went beyond rivalry or superficial bonds. They were becoming true friends. Later that evening, Naruto sat at the dinner table with Kurenai, Minato, and his classmates. The table was filled with laughter and the clinking of chopsticks as everyone dug into Kurenai's homemade meal. Sasuke, while still reserved, was more relaxed than usual, and Sakura, who had initially been distant, seemed genuinely at ease in the warmth of their home. Minato sat across from Naruto, his smile warm as he observed the group. I'm glad to see you all getting along, he said, his voice steady, but there was a hint of pride in it. Friendship and trust are two of the most important things a ninja can have. You're learning something that most people don't understand until much later in life. Naruto looked at his father, surprised. You mean, it's not just about strength? Minato smiled, his blue eyes twinkling with warmth. Exactly. Strength is important, but it's the bonds you form with others that will carry you through the toughest of challenges. Trust, loyalty, and friendship, these things can give you a strength that no amount of power can match. Kurenai nodded, her gaze affectionate as she glanced at Naruto. It's not about being alone, Naruto. It's about learning to trust those around you, knowing that you're not carrying the burden by yourself. And that trust goes both ways. You have to give it as much as you receive it. Sasuke, who had been silently eating, glanced up at Minato and Kurenai. His expression was unreadable, but his voice was uncharacteristically soft. I don't need anyone's help, he muttered, though there was less edge to his words than usual. Naruto, ever eager to push his friends out of their shells, grinned and nudged Sasuke with his elbow. You'll get used to it, Sasuke. The more you hang out with us, the better it gets. Trust me. Sasuke shot him a sharp look, but there was no malice in it. We'll see, he muttered. As the meal continued, the mood grew lighter, and the laughter grew louder. Naruto could see the subtle changes in his classmates, the way Sasuke had stopped pulling away, the way Sakura's smile seemed less forced, and the way the bonds between them were growing stronger by the day. Kurenai and Minato exchanged a quiet, knowing glance across the table. It was clear they were proud of how far Naruto had come, not just in terms of his training and abilities, but in his relationships. Naruto wasn't the same isolated child who had once tried to force his way into others' lives. He had learned, through both success and failure, the importance of patience and understanding. You've come a long way, Naruto, Kurenai said, her voice soft but filled with pride. You've built something that not many people have the chance to experience. You found trust in others, and you've earned it in return. Naruto beamed at her, his chest swelling with emotion. Thanks, Mom, he said, his voice sincere. I couldn't have done it without you and Dad. Minato nodded, his voice filled with quiet pride. You're becoming the kind of person I always hoped you would be, Naruto. Someone who doesn't just rely on their strength, but on the strength of their bonds. Naruto looked around the table at his friends, Sasuke, Sakura, even Shikamaru and Choji, and realized that Minato and Kurenai were right. This was where his true strength lay. Not in his jutsu or his lineage, but in the people who stood by his side, who trusted him and whom he could trust in return. His path as a ninja would be filled with challenges, but with these bonds, his family, his friends, he knew he would be able to face whatever came his way. "I won't let you down," Naruto said, his voice firm with resolve. "I'm gonna protect these bonds, no matter what." The room was quiet for a moment, and then Kurenai and Minato smiled at him, the warmth of their approval enveloping him like a comforting blanket. He had found something far more valuable than power. He had found the strength that came from loyalty, trust, and friendship. And that strength would carry him forward, no matter where his journey took him. Chapter 12, The Calling. The morning sun shone brightly over Konoha, casting long shadows on the streets below. It was another busy day, the usual hum of activity filling the air as Naruto walked through the village. But today felt different. He had heard rumors of something big on the horizon, a new mission, one that could potentially test his abilities in ways he hadn't anticipated. Naruto wasn't sure what to expect, but the anticipation in the air was palpable. People had been whispering about it, the higher-ups in the village were talking, and Naruto had a gut feeling that whatever was coming next would be a defining moment in his journey as a ninja. As he made his way to the Hokage Tower, the bustling noise of the village seemed to fade, replaced by the quiet rhythm of his own thoughts. He had been working hard in his training, refining his chakra control and continuing to build the bonds he had with his classmates. But recently, something had been growing inside him. His skills were improving, yes, but so was something else, his confidence, his sense of self. His thoughts were interrupted as he arrived at the Hokage Tower. The entrance was guarded, as always, and a few familiar faces nodded at him as he passed through. Naruto had been in and out of this building countless times, but today, the air felt thicker, as though the village itself was holding its breath. Naruto was led up the stairs to the meeting room, where he found Minato waiting for him, along with a few other faces he recognized, Shikaku Nara, the strategist, and several high-ranking ninjas. The atmosphere was tense, but not hostile. There was something about this gathering that made Naruto uneasy in a way he hadn't felt before. "Ah, Naruto," Minato greeted him with a warm smile, though Naruto could tell there was something more serious behind it. "Come in. We've been waiting for you." Naruto stepped forward, his chest tightening with both curiosity and uncertainty. "What's going on, Dad? What's this all about?" Minato's expression softened, but his eyes held a weight that made Naruto uneasy. "There's a mission we need you to take on, Naruto. It's not like anything you've done before." Naruto's brow furrowed. "A mission? What kind of mission?" Shikaku Nara stepped forward, folding his arms. "We've been keeping an eye on you, Naruto. You've been growing stronger, faster than most. Your chakra control is improving, and your combat abilities are impressive. But there's something else, your unique connection to the Nine Tails. It's different. It's attracted some attention." Naruto's heart skipped. "Attention? What kind of attention?" Shikaku's expression was neutral, but his words were heavy. "There are higher powers within the village who've taken note of you. They see your potential, not just as a ninja, but as something more. Something that could play a key role in future missions, especially as tensions rise around Konoha. And right now, there's a mission that will test all your abilities." Naruto swallowed. "What kind of mission are you talking about?" Minato stepped forward, his face serious but reassuring. "A new threat has emerged, one that we can't ignore. The village is under surveillance by an unknown faction. They've been gathering intel on Konoha for some time now. This mission isn't about defeating them with sheer strength. It's about strategy, observation, and using everything you've learned to protect the village." Naruto's thoughts were spinning. He had trained for years, but nothing had prepared him for this level of responsibility. His connection to the Nine Tails had always been something he struggled with, but now, it seemed like it was more than just a burden, it was a key part of something much larger. "You'll be working with your team," Minato continued. "Sasuke, Sakura, and the others will join you on this mission. But it will be your leadership, your ability to make decisions under pressure, that will define whether or not you succeed. Naruto nodded, trying to steady his breath. He had always wanted to prove himself, not just to the village, but to his parents. This was his chance to show that he could live up to the lessons they had taught him, that he could stand on his own and protect the people he cared about. "I'm ready, Dad," Naruto said, his voice steadied despite the whirlwind of emotions inside him. "I'll do whatever it takes." Minato smiled, pride evident in his eyes. "I know you will. Just remember, this mission is about more than just physical strength. It's about trust, about using your mind and your heart to make the right decisions. And I believe you're ready for this, Naruto." The following morning, Naruto met with his team at the training grounds. Sasuke, Sakura, Shikamaru, and the rest of their squad were all gathered, their faces serious but determined. Despite the weight of the mission ahead, Naruto could see the bond they had formed, the trust they had in each other. Sasuke nodded at him as he approached. "This isn't just another mission, Naruto," he said, his voice low but sharp. "We'll be in enemy territory. We need to stay focused, and we need to trust each other." Sakura gave him a small smile, though her eyes were filled with determination. "We've got your back, Naruto. We've trained for moments like this. We'll make it through." Naruto felt a warmth spread through him as he looked at each of them. They had come a long way together, and now, it was time to take everything they had learned and put it into action. "We'll do this together," Naruto said, his voice steady. "I'm not backing down. We've got a mission, and we'll complete it. For the village. For our friends." The team gathered around, nodding in agreement. This wasn't just about completing a task. This was about proving to themselves, and to the village, that they could be trusted with the responsibility of protecting the future. As they set out on the mission, Naruto's thoughts turned inward. He had spent so long trying to figure out who he was, trying to understand what his place in the world was. But now, he understood. His place wasn't defined by his father's legacy or the nine tails inside him. It was defined by the bonds he had formed, the lessons he had learned, and the strength that came from those around him. He wasn't walking in anyone's shadow. He was carving his own path, one step at a time. The mission took them to the outskirts of the village, where they had to infiltrate an unknown facility suspected of being a base for enemy spies. It was a test of patience, observation, and discipline, qualities Naruto had learned to appreciate over the years. He wasn't going to rush in head first. This time, he was going to use his head. As they approached the facility under the cover of night, Naruto's heart raced. The shadows around them seemed to pulse with tension. This was it, the moment that would define everything he had worked for. He glanced at his team, each of them moving with precision, their eyes sharp and their movements synchronized. Naruto knew they were ready. They had come so far together, and now, it was time for him to lead. "Stay close, and stay quiet," Naruto whispered, his voice steady. "We'll move in together. Trust each other, and we'll make it out of this." With a nod from Sasuke and Sakura, Naruto led the way into the shadows, his mind clear and focused. He had learned from his parents, from his team, and from his own heart. This was his mission, and he was ready. As they infiltrated the facility, the weight of their responsibility weighed heavily on Naruto, but it no longer felt like a burden. It was a calling, one that he had embraced fully, with the strength of his family, his friends, and his own will. This was the moment he had been preparing for. And he wasn't going to let anything stand in his way. Chapter 13, The Weight of the World. The air was thick with tension as Naruto and his team made their way through the dense forest. Their mission drawing to a close. The infiltration of the enemy base had been a success, but as they approached their extraction point, an unexpected ambush sent them spiraling into a life-threatening situation. The sudden clash of steel and the crackle of chakra-filled jutsu erupted from the shadows, and before Naruto could react, the enemy forces were upon them. It was a well-organized strike, a coordinated effort by an unseen enemy. "Stay close, Naruto." Sasuke's voice cut through the chaos, his Sharingan spinning as he expertly dodged an attack. Sakura's kunai flashed as she defended their position, her determination unshakable. But despite their skill, the sheer number of enemies seemed overwhelming. They were outnumbered, and with every passing minute, Naruto could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Kurenai had always taught him the importance of protecting others, and now, in this moment, the gravity of those words hit him harder than ever. The mission had started with such clear objectives, but now it was about survival. And no matter how much Naruto wanted to prove himself, he couldn't shake the truth that loomed over him. This wasn't just about winning, it was about keeping his friends, his team, alive. "Dad, Mom, please help me," Naruto whispered to himself, the weight of his legacy and his responsibilities heavier than ever before. It wasn't just his future on the line. It was the lives of those around him, Sasuke, Sakura, and Kurenai. As he was about to launch into a counterattack, a shadow darted from behind him. He barely had time to react before a sharp pain seared through his side. Naruto gasped, feeling a searing heat spread across his body. His vision blurred, and he stumbled, nearly falling to his knees. "Naruto!" Kurenai's voice was sharp, filled with alarm, as she rushed to his side. But even in the midst of his pain, Naruto could see her determination. She wasn't panicked, she was focused. "I'm fine, Mom," he grunted, trying to push himself back onto his feet. But the pain in his side was overwhelming, and his body was refusing to cooperate. "Don't try to be a hero, Naruto." Kurenai shouted, her eyes filled with worry as she crouched beside him. "You need to rest. Let me handle this." But Naruto shook his head stubbornly, his breath coming in short gasps. "I can't. I can't let you do all the work. I promised I'd protect you." Kurenai's gaze softened, but her voice was firm. "Naruto, being a hero isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about knowing when to rely on others and understanding the consequences of your actions. Protecting the ones you love doesn't mean sacrificing yourself recklessly." Naruto's heart sank. The words hit him harder than he expected. He had always believed that being a hero meant standing tall, fighting until the end, no matter the cost. But now, faced with his own mortality, he realized there was a deeper truth: the cost of protecting others wasn't just physical. It was emotional, it was personal, and it sometimes meant making sacrifices that were hard to accept. "Mom. I don't want to let anyone down," Naruto whispered, his voice raw with emotion. "I just want to be strong enough to protect everyone." Kurenai placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch warm but heavy with understanding. "I know you do, Naruto. And that's why you're already a hero. But true strength comes from knowing when to fight, and when to let others help you. You can't carry the weight of the world alone." Naruto looked up at his mother, her eyes shining with a strength that came from years of experience. "But I have to be strong for you. For everyone I care about. I can't just." "You're strong already, Naruto," Kurenai interrupted, her voice gentle but firm. "You've already shown that. You don't have to bear everything on your own. Your strength comes from the people who stand with you, people like Sasuke, Sakura, and me. And that's a strength that will always carry you through, no matter what." Naruto's heart swelled with emotion as he listened to her words. He had always seen Kurenai as a pillar of strength, but now, in this moment of weakness, he realized that his true strength didn't just come from his power or his ability to fight. It came from the trust and love he shared with those around him. Sasuke and Sakura arrived beside him, their faces filled with determination. "We've got your back, Naruto," Sasuke said, his voice steady as always. Sakura nodded in agreement, her eyes filled with unwavering trust. With his friends by his side, Naruto felt the strength return to his body, and the pain in his side seemed more bearable. He wasn't alone. He wasn't carrying the weight of the world by himself. "Let's finish this," Naruto said, his voice steadier now, fueled by the bonds he had with his teammates and his parents. He pushed himself to his feet, ready to fight once more. The battle raged on, but this time, it wasn't just about survival. It was about protecting each other, standing united against the enemies who sought to tear them apart. Naruto fought with everything he had, his chakra flowing in perfect harmony, his movements sharp and focused. By the time the battle ended, the enemy had been defeated. Naruto and his team stood victorious, bruised but unbroken. The air was thick with the aftermath of the fight, but in the silence that followed, Naruto realized something profound that would stay with him for the rest of his life. Being a hero didn't mean sacrificing everything. It meant knowing when to fight, when to trust others, and when to protect what mattered most. And most importantly, it meant understanding that the weight of the world was never meant to be carried alone. Kurenai walked over to him, her gaze proud but filled with relief. "You did well, Naruto," she said, her voice soft with affection. "You've learned what it means to protect others, not just with your strength, but with your heart." Naruto smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with his chakra. "Thanks, Mom," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I couldn't have done it without you." And in that moment, Naruto understood, true strength wasn't about never feeling weak. It was about knowing that, no matter how hard the fight, no matter how heavy the burden, there would always be someone there to help him carry it. Chapter 14, A Mother's Love. The air was thick with dust and smoke, the battlefield eerily quiet as the last of the enemies were taken down. The mission had been a success, but it came at a great cost. Naruto stood frozen, his heart pounding as he scanned the area. His teammates were nearby, their faces grim, but it wasn't them who he was looking for. He could see her, the one person he needed most in this world, lying motionless on the ground. His mother, Kurenai. "Kurenai." Naruto's voice cracked as he rushed to her side, his legs carrying him faster than he had ever moved before. His heart was racing, fear and panic flooding his senses as he knelt beside her. She was unconscious, her body battered and bruised, blood staining her clothes. Sasuke, Sakura, and the rest of the team had already secured the area, but Naruto couldn't focus on anything else but the sight of his mother lying there, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. She had been protecting them, as always, but in doing so, she had taken a blow that left her unable to fight back. "Mom," Naruto whispered, his voice trembling as he gently shook her shoulder, hoping for any sign that she was still awake. Her face was pale, her eyes closed, and there was a faint bruise forming on her temple where she had taken a heavy hit. "Please, wake up. Please, you can't." "Stay calm, Naruto," Sakura said softly, kneeling beside him. "We need to get her back to Konoha. Shikamaru's already preparing a safe route." Sasuke was already on his feet, his expression focused. "We'll get her help. Let's move quickly." Naruto nodded, but his mind was still reeling. He couldn't understand. His mother had always been so strong, so capable. She had always protected him, never once showing weakness. And now, she was the one who needed protecting. As they moved her carefully, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling of guilt that gnawed at him. She had always been there for him, always giving everything for him, and now he couldn't do the same for her. His mind raced with thoughts of what he could have done differently. How he could have stopped this from happening. It took hours to get Kurenai back to Konoha. Naruto stayed by her side the entire time, his hand holding hers as they moved through the forest. The weight of the mission felt like a distant memory now, overshadowed by the growing fear for his mother's well-being. When they finally arrived at the village, medical ninjas were waiting for them, quickly taking Kurenai into the healing center. Naruto stood outside, pacing anxiously. Every minute felt like an eternity, each passing second a reminder of how vulnerable even the strongest people could be. Sasuke and Sakura stayed with him, but their words didn't register. Naruto's mind was consumed by the thought of his mother. He could feel his heart in his throat as the hours stretched on. He had to be strong, for her. He had to be. Finally, after what seemed like forever, the doors to the healing room opened. A medical ninja stepped out, her face calm but serious. "Is she?" Naruto's voice faltered, but he couldn't finish the question. "She'll be okay, Naruto," the medical ninja said gently. "She's stable. But the injuries are severe. She'll need time to recover." Naruto felt a wave of relief wash over him, but it was quickly followed by a deep sadness. "She's okay?" She's not going to." "No," the medic interrupted, offering him a reassuring smile. "She's strong. Your mother is very strong. But she'll need rest. The next few days will be critical." Naruto nodded, still feeling the weight of the situation in his chest. He had been so focused on protecting others, so determined to be strong, that he hadn't fully realized just how much Kurenai had given for him, for all of them. As the team gathered outside the room, Minato approached, his face filled with quiet concern. He placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, his touch gentle, but there was an unspoken understanding between them. They both knew the depth of Kurenai's sacrifice. Naruto turned to face his father, his voice shaky. "She's going to be okay, right, Dad?" Minato's expression softened as he looked at his son. "She's going to be okay. But you need to understand something, Naruto." His voice was firm, yet kind. "Your mother loves you more than anything in this world. And she'll do anything to keep you safe. She's not just your protector, Naruto. She's your guide, your heart." Naruto swallowed hard, his chest tightening. He had known that his mother loved him, but in that moment, he realized just how deep that love ran. Kurenai had given so much of herself to him, and yet, she never expected anything in return. She had always been the one to carry the burden of protection, never asking for help, never complaining about the weight she bore. But now, Naruto understood. Protecting others came at a cost. And his mother had paid that price more than once. That night, after everyone had gone to rest, Naruto sat by Kurenai's bedside. Her breathing was steady now, the worst of her injuries being treated. But the exhaustion on her face was still there, and the sight of it filled him with a deep sense of gratitude and love. He reached out and gently took her hand, holding it softly in his own. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I should have been the one to protect you. You always protect me. I never realized how much you give. How much you sacrifice for me." Kurenai stirred slightly in her sleep, her hand squeezing his gently as if to reassure him. "No," she murmured softly, her voice hoarse but full of love. "You don't need to apologize. You've already given me everything I could ask for. Your strength, your heart, those are the things that matter most." Tears welled up in Naruto's eyes as he looked at his mother, seeing the depth of her sacrifice and the love she had poured into everything she did for him. "I'll be stronger, Mom. I'll protect you. I'll protect everyone." Kurenai smiled faintly in her sleep, her voice barely above a whisper. "You already do, Naruto." And in that moment, Naruto understood. He wasn't just learning to be strong for himself. He was learning to be strong for the people he loved, for those who had given everything for him. As the night wore on, Naruto sat by her side, his heart lighter than it had been in a long time. He wasn't alone anymore. He wasn't the only one carrying the weight of the world. He had people to protect, and he had people who would protect him. And no matter the cost, he would be the hero they needed him to be. Chapter 15, The Path of the Ninja. The sun was setting over the village of Konoha, casting long shadows over the training grounds. The usual hustle and bustle of the village were winding down as the day came to a close. Naruto stood at the edge of the field, his eyes staring out into the distance. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, a feeling that something important was about to unfold. He had been training hard, honing his skills and learning from the best. But lately, as his abilities had grown, so had his awareness of the weight that came with them. Kurenai and Minato had always been there for him, guiding him through the challenges of being a ninja. But as he continued to grow, Naruto had begun to realize that the path he was walking wasn't just about learning jutsu or completing missions. It was about understanding the responsibility that came with being a ninja, the duty to protect, to serve, and to uphold the values of Konoha. "Mom, Dad," Naruto muttered to himself, his thoughts drifting. "Am I ready for all of this?" The question weighed heavily on his heart, and as if on cue, he felt a familiar presence behind him. Kurenai and Minato stood side by side, their expressions filled with a quiet understanding. They had seen the way Naruto had struggled with the growing responsibilities on his shoulders. They knew the burden of being a ninja, and they understood that the journey he was on would be a difficult one. "You're thinking about your future, aren't you, Naruto?" Kurenai asked softly, her voice warm with affection. Naruto turned to face them, his eyes filled with uncertainty. "Yeah," he said. "I keep thinking about everything I've learned so far, about what it means to be a ninja. I know I've been growing stronger, but I still don't feel like I fully understand everything that comes with it." Minato stepped forward, his expression serious yet filled with pride. "Being a ninja isn't just about strength, Naruto. It's about making choices. It's about understanding the balance between power and responsibility." Kurenai nodded, her gaze softening as she spoke. "There will be times when you'll have to make tough decisions, decisions that will affect the lives of others. You'll have to choose between doing what's right and doing what's easy. It's not always clear, but you have to trust in your instincts, in your heart." Naruto listened intently, his mind processing their words. He had always admired his parents for their strength, but hearing them speak about the true nature of being a ninja made him realize just how much more there was to the path he was walking. "I've been training hard," Naruto said, his voice steady now, but his eyes still uncertain. "I've learned a lot, and I've been through some tough battles. But I feel like I'm missing something. I don't know if I fully understand what it means to be a ninja." Kurenai stepped forward, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder. "That's okay, Naruto. No one understands everything right away. You're learning as you go. But what matters is that you're asking those questions. You're not just following a path blindly, you're thinking critically about your role in this world. That's what makes you a true ninja." Minato's expression softened, his blue eyes filled with quiet pride. "Your journey is yours, Naruto. No one can walk it for you. The path of a ninja is filled with challenges, with moments of doubt and fear. But it's also filled with purpose. You've already started finding that purpose. And we'll be here to help you every step of the way." Naruto nodded, the weight on his shoulders feeling just a little bit lighter. He had always known that his parents loved him and wanted the best for him, but hearing them speak about the path of a ninja in this way made him realize that their support wasn't just about training him physically. They were teaching him to understand the heart of a ninja, what it truly meant to protect others, to fight for justice, and to carry the burden of their village's trust. As the evening continued, Naruto spent more time reflecting on his journey. He thought about the lessons he had learned, how to be strong, how to be kind, how to protect those who needed him. But he also began to understand the deeper responsibility that came with those lessons. Being a ninja wasn't about fame or recognition, it was about making choices that would define the future, about standing up for what was right, even when it wasn't easy. Later that evening, after a quiet dinner with his family, Naruto sat alone outside, watching the stars above. He felt a strange sense of calm settle over him as he gazed at the peaceful sky. His parents had given him everything he needed to understand the true meaning of being a ninja, and now, he knew what he had to do. He had to keep moving forward, one step at a time. As he sat there, he could almost feel his parents' presence beside him, their guidance and wisdom surrounding him like an invisible shield. He wasn't alone on this journey. Not now, not ever. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad, Naruto whispered softly to the night sky. I won't let you down. I'll be the ninja you always believed I could be. And with that, Naruto stood up, a sense of clarity filling his heart. The path ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more battles, more decisions, and more challenges. But he was ready. He wasn't just the son of the fourth Hokage. He wasn't just the vessel for the Nine Tails. He was Naruto Uzumaki, and he was going to forge his own path, one that would be filled with purpose, strength, and the unwavering desire to protect those he loved. Chapter 16, The Shadow of the Nine Tails. The village was quiet that evening, the air cool and still as the sun began to set. Naruto sat alone on the roof of the Hokage Tower, gazing at the horizon, lost in thought. The weight in his chest wasn't just from the physical exhaustion of training or missions, it was something deeper, a gnawing feeling he couldn't shake. It had been building for a while, ever since the last mission. His strength had increased, his chakra control had improved, but there was something else now, something that lurked just beneath the surface, stirring within him like a sleeping beast. The Nine Tails. He could feel it, like a dark shadow within him, its presence growing stronger with every passing day. The power that had once been a source of strength was now something he struggled to control. He had always known the Nine Tails was inside him, but recently, it felt as though it was trying to break free. Its power thrummed at the edges of his mind, and Naruto could feel it pulling at him, promising strength, but at the cost of his sanity. Naruto clenched his fists, his heart pounding in his chest. The familiar heat of the Nine Tails chakra surged beneath his skin, and he could feel the beast stirring, its presence just below the surface. The sense of unease he'd been feeling seemed to intensify, and for the first time in a long while, he questioned whether he could truly control the power inside him, or if it would control him instead. Not again, he muttered to himself, pressing his hands to his forehead. He didn't want to lose control. He had worked so hard to keep the Nine Tails locked away, to use its power for good. But now, it felt as though the balance was tipping, and he wasn't sure if he could keep it in check. The sound of footsteps behind him broke his concentration, and Naruto turned to see Kurenai standing at the doorway, her expression a mixture of concern and understanding. "You've been up here for a while," she said gently, walking over to him. "I can feel it. The Nine Tails, it's pushing harder, isn't it?" Naruto nodded, his gaze falling to the ground. "It's getting harder to keep control. I can feel its power, its anger. It's like it wants to break free." Kurenai sat down beside him, her presence calm and steady. "I know it's difficult. I've watched you struggle with it for so long. But remember, Naruto, you're not alone in this. You're stronger than you think." Naruto looked at her, his brow furrowed. "But what if I can't keep it under control? What if I lose myself to it?" Kurenai smiled softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're stronger than you know. You've already learned how to keep the Nine Tails at bay. Now, you need to learn how to work with it, not against it." Naruto's gaze softened as he listened to her words. He had come so far, but there were still moments when he doubted himself, when the fear of losing control threatened to overwhelm him. Kurenai had always been there to guide him, but this was something he had to face on his own. "Tell me what to do, Mom," Naruto said, his voice quiet but filled with determination. "I'm ready to learn." Kurenai's eyes softened with pride, but her voice was firm. "You need to tap into your inner strength. Trust yourself, Naruto. The Nine Tails can't control you unless you let it. You've already proven that you have the willpower to keep it in check. Now, you need to let that strength guide you." She closed her eyes, focusing her chakra, and Naruto felt a calming warmth envelop him. It was like a shield, protecting him from the storm of power that raged inside. Kurenai's chakra radiated with an intensity that made him feel safe, centered, and he realized that this was the key. It wasn't about fighting the Nine Tails, it was about balancing its power with his own. Now, close your eyes, Kurenai instructed. Take a deep breath and feel the chakra inside you. Feel the Nine Tails' presence. Don't fight it, accept it. You are the one in control. Naruto followed her instructions, closing his eyes and taking a slow, steady breath. At first, he felt the usual stirring inside him, the burning heat of the Nine Tails, the deep rumble of its chakra pulsing beneath his skin. But this time, instead of pushing it away, Naruto allowed himself to feel it, to acknowledge its presence without fear. It was like holding a flame in his hand. He could feel the heat, the intensity, but it didn't burn. He could hold it steady, contain it, without letting it consume him. Good, Kurenai said softly, her voice steady. You are stronger than you realize. You've always had the strength to keep this power in balance. You're learning to use it, not to fear it. Naruto opened his eyes, a sense of peace settling in his chest. The Nine Tails was still there, but it no longer felt like an uncontrollable force. He could feel its power, but now it was a part of him, something he could work with, not something that ruled him. Thanks, Mom, Naruto said, his voice filled with gratitude. I think I understand now. Kurenai smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. I'm always here for you, Naruto. You don't have to face this alone. Meanwhile, Minato sat in his study, his thoughts weighed down by the very same burden that Naruto carried. He had sealed the Nine Tails inside his son, knowing the risks, knowing the consequences. But no matter how much he wanted to protect Naruto, he couldn't erase the guilt that lingered in his heart. He had done it for the village, for the future of Konoha, but at what cost? His son had to bear a burden that no child should ever carry. The guilt gnawed at him, and he wondered if he had made the right decision. What had it done to Naruto? What kind of life would he have now, with that power inside him? Minato closed his eyes, his hands gripping the edges of his desk. I'm sorry, Naruto, he whispered. I never meant for you to carry this weight. But I know you're strong. I know you'll find your way, even if it's hard. As Minato sat in the quiet of his study, Kurenai entered, her expression thoughtful. He's learning, she said, her voice calm yet filled with understanding. He's learning to control it, Minato. He's not the same as he was when we first sealed the Nine Tails inside him. He's growing stronger, both inside and out. Minato looked up at her, a faint smile on his lips. I know. I just wish I had done more to prepare him, to protect him from this burden. But maybe this is the way he's meant to grow. Kurenai nodded. It's his journey, Minato. And he'll walk it with the strength we've taught him, with the love and support we've given him. That's the best we can do for him now. Back on the roof. Naruto stood in the fading light, feeling the cool breeze against his skin. The Nine Tails was still there, but it no longer felt like an enemy. It was a part of him now, one that he could control. And with Kurenai's guidance, he had unlocked a strength he hadn't realized he had. He wasn't just the son of the fourth Hokage. He wasn't just a vessel for the Nine Tails. He was Naruto Uzumaki, and he was going to face whatever challenges lay ahead, not as a victim of his circumstances, but as a warrior who had the strength to overcome them. Chapter 17, Teamwork and Loyalty. The air was thick with the tension of an impending storm as Naruto stood at the front of his team, his gaze fixed on the mission briefing. The task at hand was unlike any they had faced before. The target was a rogue faction from a neighboring village, highly skilled, dangerous, and well-organized. Their mission was clear: infiltrate, gather intelligence, and eliminate the threat before it could harm Konoha. Naruto had always thrived in the heat of battle, but this time, the stakes were higher. The lives of his friends, his family, and the entire village rested on their shoulders. His father, Minato, and Kurenai had trained him well, but now it was time to put everything into practice. The weight of the responsibility wasn't lost on him. "We've faced tough missions before, but this one is different," Naruto said, turning to face his team. Sasuke, Sakura, and the others stood by his side, all of them equally prepared but aware of the risks they were about to face. "This isn't just about strength," Naruto continued, his voice steady but filled with resolve. "It's about working together, trusting each other, and making sure we come back to Konoha, no matter what." Sasuke gave a small nod, his sharp gaze focused. Sakura, usually the one to speak up with a comment, was unusually quiet, but Naruto could see the determination in her eyes. They were ready. Kurenai, standing a little apart from the team, was looking at them with a proud smile. She had always been a guiding presence for Naruto, and she had confidence in him. "Remember, Naruto," she said, stepping closer to him, "it's not just about getting the job done. It's about doing it the right way. Use your strength, but also your mind. Trust your team, and they'll trust you." Naruto met her gaze, taking in her words. "I won't let you down, Mom. We'll finish this mission together, no matter what." The team moved swiftly through the dense forest, the mission starting with their usual precision. Kurenai had helped them plan every move, ensuring they were always one step ahead. But as they neared the enemy's compound, Naruto could feel the shift, the tension, the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Naruto's mind was sharp, analyzing every detail as they approached the compound under the cover of night. The layout was complex, but they had trained for this. Their goal was to gather information and neutralize the enemy without drawing attention to Konoha's involvement. But Naruto knew that wouldn't be easy. "We're going in together," Naruto said, his voice low but commanding. "Stay sharp. No one acts alone." The team split into smaller groups to surround the compound. Naruto led Sasuke and Sakura to one side, while the rest of the team took other positions. Every step was calculated. Every action was deliberate. They were a well-oiled machine, ready to carry out their task. As they moved closer to their target, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. His instincts were never wrong, and just as he sensed the danger, enemy ninjas emerged from the shadows, surrounding them on all sides. "Ambush!" Naruto shouted, immediately pulling out his kunai and preparing for the inevitable fight. The enemy was swift, and their numbers were greater than expected. This wasn't just a skirmish, this was a battle that would test everything they had learned. Sasuke was the first to engage, his Sharingan activating as he cut down enemies with precision. Sakura followed close behind, her strength enhanced by her training, using her chakra to launch powerful strikes that incapacitated their foes. Naruto's heart raced. But his focus never wavered. He had trained for moments like this. He wasn't just the son of Minato anymore. He wasn't just a vessel for the Nine Tails. He was the leader of his team. His mission was to protect them, and he would do whatever it took. "Mom, now's the time." Naruto called out, signaling Kurenai, who had been observing the battle from a distance. Kurenai stepped forward, her presence commanding. "Now, Naruto," she said, her voice steady. She quickly began weaving signs and releasing a series of tactical genjutsu to disorient their enemies, giving Naruto and his team the opening they needed to strike. With the enemy temporarily blinded, Naruto made his move. His chakra flared as he focused on the task at hand, leading Sasuke and Sakura through the battlefield with precision. Together, they fought as one, each of them covering the other's weaknesses, exploiting openings, and using their strengths to gain the upper hand. Sasuke and Sakura were like extensions of his own body, working in perfect harmony with his every move. They trusted him as their leader, just as he trusted them to back him up. The battle raged on, but Naruto could feel their teamwork and loyalty strengthening with every passing second. As the last of the enemy forces fell, the battlefield fell eerily silent. But Naruto didn't let his guard down. The mission wasn't over yet. They still needed to secure the intelligence and make their exit. "We did it," Naruto said, panting but filled with a deep sense of satisfaction. "Everyone, fall back. We've got what we came for." Back at the village, Kurenai, Minato, and the others waited for their return. When Naruto and his team arrived, weary but victorious, Kurenai couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of pride. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "You led your team to victory, and you did it the right way." Minato stepped forward, his expression serious but proud. "Naruto, I've watched you grow, but today, I saw you lead your team with the kind of resolve and clarity I've only ever dreamed of. You're not just my son. You're a true leader." Naruto felt a swell of emotion in his chest. He had led his team, protected them, and brought them home. He wasn't just the son of the fourth Hokage anymore. He had forged his own path, and he was starting to understand the true weight of what it meant to be a leader. "Thanks, Dad." "Thanks, Mom," Naruto said, his voice filled with gratitude. "We did it together. I couldn't have done it without them." Kurenai smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did it, Naruto. You've proven that you can lead, not because of your name or your blood, but because of who you are. You are a true ninja." Naruto smiled back, his heart light with pride. He wasn't just the son of a hero. He was a hero in his own right. And with his team, his family, and the strength of the bonds he had forged, there was no limit to what they could achieve together. Chapter 18, The Fire Inside. The forest was quiet, too quiet. The usual sounds of nature were muted by the anticipation that hung in the air. Naruto stood at the forefront of his team, his heart pounding with adrenaline as he scanned the surrounding trees, his eyes sharp. His instincts were telling him that something was coming, and it wasn't going to be easy. Their mission had seemed simple enough, an assignment to neutralize a rogue group of ninja causing trouble in the area. But now, as they ventured deeper into the heart of the forest, the weight of the situation pressed down on them. Something felt off. The air was thick, heavy with tension. "We're being watched," Sasuke said, his voice low and focused. He scanned the trees around them, his Sharingan already activated. "Stay alert," Naruto ordered, his voice sharp but calm. "Everyone, stay close. We move together." They had trained for moments like this, but Naruto could feel the heat in his chest growing, the familiar rush of energy building in his body. The nine tails stirred within him, a constant reminder of the power he carried. But this time, Naruto didn't feel as if he needed it, not yet. This was a test of his mind as much as his strength. Suddenly, the silence was broken. From the shadows, a figure emerged, tall, cloaked in dark robes, with eyes that gleamed like daggers. The new enemy was a rogue ninja unlike any Naruto had faced before. He moved with a precision and calmness that suggested years of experience, and there was something unsettling about his presence. Naruto's eyes narrowed as the figure stepped forward, his voice calm but menacing. "I've been waiting for you, Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto bristled at the sound of his name. He wasn't about to let this enemy intimidate him. "Who are you? What do you want?" The rogue ninja smiled coldly, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. "I am no one important. But I'm here to test you. To see if you are truly worthy of the power you wield." Naruto clenched his fists, feeling the familiar fire ignite inside him. He could feel the nine tails chakra swirling within him, eager to be unleashed. He didn't need to hold back. He had the power to defeat this enemy in an instant. "Stay back," Naruto said, looking at his team. "I've got this." But Kurenai stepped forward, her voice soft but commanding. "Naruto, wait." He turned to her, his brows furrowed. What? This guy's asking for a fight. I'm not going to hold back. Kurenai's expression was calm, though there was a seriousness in her gaze. Sometimes, strength isn't about overwhelming your enemy with power. It's about understanding their intentions and responding with the right approach. You don't always have to fight with fire, Naruto. Patience and compassion are just as powerful. Naruto's chest tightened. He had always relied on his fiery determination to push through obstacles, but Kurenai's words made him pause. She had always taught him to approach challenges with a clear mind, not just brute force. He had learned so much from her, but in moments like this, it was hard to turn off that inner fire. You don't understand, Naruto said, his voice a bit sharper now. This guy's threatening the village. I can't just stand here and talk it out. We need to end this before it gets worse. Kurenai looked at him with unwavering patience. You've already proven your strength, Naruto. But true strength comes from understanding your enemy, understanding yourself, and understanding that not every battle needs to be fought with violence. Naruto's thoughts swirled, the battle inside him just as intense as the one unfolding in front of him. The Nine Tails' power called to him, tempting him to unleash everything in a single, destructive wave. But Kurenai's words rang in his ears, reminding him that there was another way. He took a deep breath, grounding himself. Okay, he said, his voice steady but filled with resolve. I'll try it your way. The rogue ninja, sensing Naruto's hesitation, smirked. You think you can beat me with kindness, Uzumaki? You're nothing but a child playing hero. Naruto's jaw clenched, but he didn't let the anger take control. Instead, he looked the rogue in the eye and said, I'm not here to fight you. I want to understand why you're doing this. What's driving you to hurt others? You don't have to live this way. The rogue ninja's expression faltered for a split second, as though he hadn't expected Naruto to respond this way. He took a step back, his sword still in hand, but his posture was no longer as aggressive. You think I want your pity, the rogue scoffed, but there was a trace of uncertainty in his voice. You know nothing about the pain I've suffered. Naruto's gaze softened. No, I don't know your pain. But I know what it feels like to carry a burden you don't understand. I know what it feels like to be judged before you've had a chance to prove yourself. I've been there, and I don't want you to carry that anger forever. The rogue ninja hesitated, his hand tightening on the sword hilt before loosening. The anger in his eyes faded just slightly, replaced by something darker, a fear of being understood, perhaps. Naruto took another step forward, his voice calm but full of conviction. You don't have to walk this path alone. There's another way. The rogue ninja's gaze flickered, doubt creeping into his expression. For a long moment, the two of them stood there, locked in an unspoken battle, a battle of wills, of emotions. Naruto's words, his genuine desire for understanding, cut through the walls the rogue had built around himself. But just as the rogue ninja's resolve seemed to crack, a dark energy flared, and he suddenly attacked with a burst of speed. Naruto was forced to react quickly, his instincts kicking in, but he remembered Kurenai's words. He didn't meet the attack with fire, instead, he deflected it with a well-timed, controlled strike that neutralized the rogue's momentum without causing serious harm. The rogue ninja stumbled back, breathing heavily. His eyes were wide with shock. You didn't fight back with anger. Naruto's voice was steady. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to stop you from hurting others. The rogue ninja looked at Naruto for a long moment before he finally lowered his sword, the fight draining out of him. I never thought anyone would care enough to stop me. Naruto nodded, taking a step forward. I do. We all do. As the rogue ninja surrendered, Kurenai and the team moved in to secure him, their trust in Naruto's leadership clear. The mission was a success, not because of sheer force, but because Naruto had learned the value of patience and compassion. He had fought with his heart, understanding that true strength wasn't just about power, it was about offering others a chance at redemption, a chance to change. Later, as the team sat around the campfire that night, Naruto reflected on the day's events. He had learned something new about himself, something he hadn't expected. The fire inside him, his determination, his drive to protect, was powerful. But now he understood that sometimes, the greatest strength came from the gentler side of his spirit. Kurenai sat beside him, her gaze gentle but proud. You did well today, Naruto. You didn't just win the battle. You reached someone who thought they were beyond saving. Naruto smiled, the warmth of the fire reflecting in his eyes. I guess I'm learning that sometimes, the hardest battles are the ones fought in here. He placed a hand over his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. And that, Kurenai said softly, is what makes you a true ninja. Chapter 19, The Bonds We Share. The morning sun barely touched the horizon, casting a pale orange glow over the village of Konoha. Naruto sat alone on the roof of a quiet building, his legs dangling over the edge as he stared out at the peaceful landscape. Despite the serenity of the village before him, his heart was anything but calm. Lately, something had been gnawing at him, a persistent unease that wouldn't let go. The questions had started small, in the back of his mind, but now they had become impossible to ignore. Every lesson he had learned, every challenge he had overcome, was it enough? Was he truly following the right path? His thoughts kept returning to the same place, his connection to the Nine Tails. It wasn't just about controlling its power anymore. It was more than that. It was about the fear, the uncertainty of whether he was truly worthy of the power inside him, whether he could ever escape the shadow of the beast within. What was his purpose? The question echoed in his mind over and over, louder with each passing day. He had always fought for Konoha, for his friends, for his family. But what if that wasn't enough? What if his strength, his very existence, was tied to something he couldn't control? Was he doomed to be a mere vessel for the Nine Tails, forever bound to its power? Naruto clenched his fists, the familiar heat of the Nine Tails chakra pulsing under his skin. He could feel it, the beast stirring, demanding more, pulling at him, as if to remind him that it was always there, lurking in the depths of his soul. Why? Naruto muttered, his voice breaking slightly. Why is it always there? Why does it feel like it's consuming me? His thoughts were interrupted by a soft voice calling his name. He turned to see Kurenai approaching, her expression gentle but concerned. She had been watching him from a distance, sensing the turmoil within him. Naruto, she said softly, sitting down beside him. I can feel the weight on your heart. What's going on? Naruto didn't answer immediately. He just stared out at the village, trying to find the words. I don't know if I can keep doing this, he said quietly. I don't know if I can keep being the person everyone expects me to be. Every time I think I've figured things out, it feels like the Nine Tails is pulling me further away from everything I want. I don't know who I am anymore. Kurenai's eyes softened with understanding, and she placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch warm and steady. I've watched you struggle with this for a long time, Naruto, she said gently. You've always fought for others, for the village, for your friends. But now you're questioning yourself. And that's okay. It's okay to ask these questions. Naruto turned to her, his eyes filled with frustration. But how do I know what's right? How do I know if I'm doing this for the right reasons? What if I'm just using the Nine Tails as an excuse to keep fighting? Kurenai took a deep breath, her gaze steady and calm. Naruto, you're more than just the Nine Tails. That power is a part of you, but it doesn't define you. It's the choices you make that shape who you are, not the power inside you. But what if I'm not strong enough to make the right choice? Naruto's voice cracked with the weight of his doubt. What if I fail? What if the Nine Tails takes control, and I can't stop it? What if I'm not even a hero? What if I'm just a monster? Kurenai's heart ached at the words. She had always known how much Naruto struggled with the burden of the Nine Tails. She had seen the weight of it on his shoulders for so long. But she also knew something Naruto hadn't yet realized, that his true strength wasn't in his ability to control the Nine Tails, but in his heart, in the bonds he shared with the people around him. Listen to me, Naruto, she said firmly, her voice filled with quiet conviction. I've seen you grow stronger every day. I've seen you fight for others, fight for what's right. But you've never done it alone. You've had your friends. You've had your family. You've had the people who believe in you. Naruto looked at her, his eyes filled with confusion. But what if I can't do it? What if I don't deserve that belief? Kurenai smiled softly. You're not perfect. No one is. But that doesn't mean you don't deserve to be loved, or that you don't have the strength to overcome this. The bonds you share with others, that's where your true power lies. You don't need to fight this battle alone. Naruto took a deep breath, his chest still heavy with doubt, but something in Kurenai's words resonated with him. He had always relied on others for strength, whether it was his team, his parents, or even the villagers who had slowly begun to accept him. His strength came not from the Nine Tails, but from the people who had stood by him through everything. Mom, he whispered, his voice filled with a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. What if I can't find the answers? What if I'm not who everyone thinks I am? Kurenai's smile was warm, filled with a mother's love. You don't have to have all the answers right now, Naruto. Life is about learning. You'll find your way, one step at a time. And as long as you hold on to the bonds you formed, as long as you keep fighting for what you believe in, you'll always have the strength you need. Naruto closed his eyes, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. The weight that had been pressing down on him for so long wasn't gone, but it didn't feel as crushing as before. Kurenai was right. It wasn't about finding the perfect answer. It was about taking one step forward, trusting the people around him, and knowing that, no matter what, he wasn't alone. I'll keep fighting, Naruto said quietly, his voice steady now. Not because I have to, but because I want to. I won't let the Nine Tails control me. And I won't let my doubts control me either. Kurenai nodded, her heart filled with pride. That's the Naruto I know. And that's the Naruto who will always find his way. Naruto stood up, his heart lighter than it had been in days. The fire inside him had been tempered, but it burned brighter now. Fueled by the bonds he shared with his friends, his family, and everyone he cared about. He wasn't defined by the Nine Tails. He wasn't defined by his doubts or fears. He was Naruto Uzumaki, and he was ready to walk the path ahead, knowing that the bonds he shared with others were what gave him the true strength to move forward. As he turned to walk back toward the village, he felt Kurenai's presence beside him, a steadying force that reminded him that he didn't have to walk alone. He had his family. He had his team. And together, they would face whatever challenges came their way. Chapter 20, Secrets Unveiled. The weight of the village was pressing down on Naruto in ways he hadn't expected. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the village, he found himself sitting with his father, Minato, in the Hokage Tower. The weight of their previous conversations hung in the air. The peace they had all fought so hard to build was being threatened by a shadowy enemy, an enemy whose very existence had remained hidden until now. Naruto's heart beat heavily in his chest as he looked at his father, who had just returned from an urgent meeting with the village's council. Minato's usually calm and composed demeanor seemed strained, as if something was weighing on him, something he wasn't fully prepared to share. "Dad, what's going on?" Naruto asked, his voice more serious than usual. "Why do you look so worried?" Minato exhaled deeply, sitting across from Naruto, his eyes distant for a moment as he considered his words carefully. "There's something I need to tell you, something I should have prepared you for, Naruto. You've grown so much, but there are still dangers ahead that you need to understand. There's a secret organization that has been operating under the radar for years. It's a group with its own agenda, and its ultimate goal is to destroy Konoha. Naruto's eyes widened, his mind racing to process his father's words. A group that wants to destroy Konoha? Why haven't we heard of them before? Minato's expression darkened. They've been very careful. They've worked from the shadows, influencing events, causing divisions, and creating chaos within other villages. They've been manipulating people for years, and their ultimate plan is to bring down Konoha, believing that the world would be better without the Hokage and the village's power. Who are they? What are they called? Naruto's voice was filled with urgency, the weight of his father's words sinking deep into his chest. They go by many names, Minato said, his voice lowering. But the one most commonly used is Akatsuki. It's a group of rogue ninjas, powerful in their own right, and they have one goal, chaos. And they're more dangerous than any threat Konoha has faced in the past. Naruto sat in stunned silence, the reality of the situation sinking in. An enemy like this, one who had been hiding in the shadows for so long. It wasn't just an immediate threat, it was something much larger. The foundations of Konoha were being attacked without the village even knowing it. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? Naruto asked, his voice tight with confusion and concern. Minato sighed, his gaze filled with a mixture of regret and concern for his son. Because I wanted you to be ready first. I wanted you to grow stronger, to understand that power alone isn't enough to protect people. I wanted you to trust your instincts, your team, and the people you care about. But now, the time has come for you to face this head-on. Naruto's fists clenched. This wasn't just a normal mission. This was the kind of battle that could change everything, the kind of battle where it wasn't just his strength that mattered, but the strength of everyone around him. I'm ready, Dad, Naruto said, his voice firm. I don't know everything about this Akatsuki group, but I know this, if they want to destroy Konoha, they'll have to go through me. And they'll have to go through my friends, my team, and my family. Minato's expression softened with pride. I knew you would say that. You've come so far, Naruto. But this fight won't be like any you've faced before. You'll need to work with your team. With the village, and you'll need to make decisions that could cost you everything. Naruto nodded, his mind already thinking about the future, about the battles they would have to face together. This wasn't just about defeating enemies, it was about defending everything Konoha stood for, everything he had come to love. I'll protect everyone, Dad. No matter what. Minato smiled, the pride in his eyes undeniable. I know you will. And you won't be alone. Kurenai, Sasuke, Sakura, and the others, they're all with you. The bonds you've formed will be your greatest strength. Later that night, Naruto sat outside his house, staring at the stars above him. The weight of his father's words still lingered, but there was a sense of clarity now. He knew what he had to do. He couldn't do it alone, but he didn't need to. The village was his family, and his team, his friends, would be with him through whatever came next. Mom. Dad, Naruto whispered, his voice soft as he looked up at the stars. I don't know what's coming, but I promise I'll protect everyone. The next day, the village was abuzz with the news. The Hokage had called for a meeting of the village's elite ninjas, a gathering to discuss the growing threat of Akatsuki. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and the rest of their team gathered in the Hokage Tower, the atmosphere tense as they waited for the meeting to begin. Kurenai stood beside Naruto, her expression calm but filled with concern. You're going to have to be strong, Naruto, she said, her voice soft. This isn't just about fighting. It's about making sure Konoha stands strong through the storm. I know, Naruto replied, his gaze unwavering. But I'm not alone. We have each other. That's what makes us strong. The door to the meeting room opened, and Minato stepped inside, his expression grim but resolute. "Everyone, please take a seat," he said. "We have much to discuss." Naruto took his place beside his friends, feeling the weight of the situation settle on his shoulders. He had always known there were dangers in the world, but this was different. This was a shadow that had been hanging over Konoha for years, and now it was time to face it head-on. As the meeting began, Minato laid out the details of Akatsuki's operations. The rogue ninja organization had already begun to move, and their influence was spreading. But Konoha wasn't without its allies. The other villages had begun to take notice of Akatsuki's activities, and it was only a matter of time before they would be forced to act. "We need to unite," Minato said, his voice strong. "This isn't just Konoha's fight. It's a fight for the survival of the entire shinobi world. And we'll need all our strength, our alliances, and our resolve to stand against this threat." Naruto felt the fire inside him rise once again. This wasn't just about the Nine Tails or his personal struggles. This was about protecting the village that had given him a home, about protecting his friends, his family, and everything he held dear. "We'll fight together," Naruto said, his voice steady, filled with the conviction of someone who had found his purpose. "We'll stand strong, because we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for the bonds we share. And that's what makes us unbeatable." Chapter 21, The Power of the Heart. The sun had barely risen over the village of Konoha, but the air was already thick with tension. The villagers moved about, preparing for the day, but beneath the surface, a storm was brewing, one that Naruto could feel in his bones. The past weeks had been filled with uncertainty and fear, and now, the time had come to face a decision that could change everything. Naruto stood in the middle of the training ground, his fists clenched at his sides. His heart pounded in his chest, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He had always known that being a ninja meant making difficult choices, but nothing had prepared him for this. The mission was clear: eliminate a key member of Akatsuki before they could carry out their plan. It was a matter of village security, and failure wasn't an option. But as Naruto had worked his way closer to the target, he had discovered something that shook him to his core. The person they were targeting wasn't just another enemy. It was someone who, in another life, could have been a friend. Someone he had once known, a former ninja from Konoha, who had once fought by his side. The realization hit him like a thunderclap. The lines between duty and personal emotion blurred, and Naruto found himself at a crossroads, torn between the loyalty he owed to his village and the person he had once trusted. It was an impossible choice, and the more he thought about it, the more it consumed him. Why did it have to be like this? Naruto whispered to himself, pacing back and forth. He felt the Nine Tails chakra thrumming inside him, urging him to act swiftly, to not hesitate. But his heart was heavy with doubt. How could he strike down someone he once considered an ally, a friend? The duty to protect Konoha clashed with the compassion in his heart, and the battle inside him raged. Naruto. Naruto turned sharply to see Kurenai walking toward him, her calm presence cutting through the turmoil. Her eyes were full of understanding, and she stopped just in front of him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're struggling," she said softly. "I can feel it." Naruto nodded, his eyes dark with uncertainty. "How am I supposed to do this, Mom? How am I supposed to fight someone who was once part of our team? Someone I fought beside? Konoha needs to be protected, but I can't just erase everything we shared." Kurenai's gaze softened, and she took a deep breath. "I know this isn't easy. But you need to understand something. The bonds you've formed, the friendships you've built, those are part of who you are. But being a ninja isn't just about what's personal. It's about doing what's right, even when it hurts." "But how do I know what's right?" Naruto asked, his voice shaking with emotion. "How can I decide between the village and the people I care about?" Kurenai's grip tightened, and she looked at him with steady resolve. "It's not about choosing one over the other, Naruto. It's about finding a balance. Your duty is to protect the village, but your heart is what makes you strong. The person you are, the compassion you feel, that's what makes you a true ninja. Don't let anyone, not even your enemies, take that away from you. Naruto stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. He had always known that he couldn't be ruled by his emotions, but for the first time, he understood that it wasn't about shutting them out either. He had to use his heart to guide him, not just his fists. Kurenai smiled softly, the pride in her eyes unmistakable. You are a warrior, Naruto. But you are also someone who cares deeply for the people around you. That's why you'll make the right choice. Not because it's easy, but because you'll choose with your heart. Naruto's eyes softened, and for the first time in days, he felt the clarity he had been searching for. Kurenai was right. The right decision wasn't about making the choice that was easy or the one that made him feel powerful, it was about staying true to who he was, to the bonds he shared with others. But he wasn't done yet. There was one person left who needed to speak to him. Later that night, Naruto found himself standing in front of the Hokage Tower, gazing up at the stars. The village was still, and for a moment, he allowed himself a moment of peace before the storm. Behind him, he heard footsteps, and he turned to see Minato walking toward him. His father's expression was as calm and steady as always, but Naruto could see the concern in his eyes. You've been thinking about it, haven't you? Minato asked quietly. Naruto nodded, his chest tight with emotion. Yeah. I don't know what to do. I have to stop Akatsuki, but, what if the person I'm meant to stop is someone who was once on our side? Someone I cared about? Minato stopped in front of him, his expression solemn but filled with understanding. The path of a ninja is never easy, Naruto. We're often forced to make choices that don't feel right. But sometimes, protecting the village means we have to make sacrifices. It's painful, but that's the burden of being a leader. Naruto's hands tightened into fists. But I don't want to be a leader who abandons his heart. I don't want to forget what makes me, me. Minato smiled, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. You won't have to. Your heart is what will guide you, Naruto. It will remind you of what's important. You don't have to fight this battle alone. You have your team, your family, and your village. Naruto met his father's gaze, feeling the love and strength in his eyes. I'm not alone. You're right. Minato's smile grew. You've always been stronger than you know, Naruto. Trust in yourself, trust in your heart. It's the most powerful weapon you have. The next day, Naruto made his decision. It wasn't easy, but he knew it was the right one. He couldn't abandon his duty, but he also couldn't abandon the people who had shaped him into the person he was. He would face the consequences of his choice, whatever they may be. As he approached the enemy's hideout, his heart steady and his resolve unwavering, he knew that the battle ahead wouldn't be won by strength alone. It would be won by the bonds he had formed, by his compassion, and by his willingness to do what was right, even when it was the hardest thing he'd ever done. He wasn't just the son of the fourth Hokage. He wasn't just the vessel for the Nine Tails. He was Naruto Uzumaki, and he was ready to fight for what mattered most, the people he loved, the village he would protect, and the future he would create. Chapter 22, A Mother's Strength. The mission had escalated quickly, and now Naruto found himself standing at the center of an all-out battle. The enemy had grown stronger, more organized, and their assault on Konoha was unlike anything the village had faced before. It wasn't just rogue ninjas, they were being attacked by an entire force of enemy soldiers, skilled and ruthless. Naruto fought alongside his team, his chakra flaring as he unleashed everything he had learned. Sasuke's Sharingan was in full effect, cutting down enemies with swift precision, while Sakura's strength and resolve were a perfect match for the chaos of battle. But the sheer number of enemies was overwhelming, and every step forward felt like a battle in itself. As they pushed through the battlefield, Naruto could feel his heart pounding in his chest. He was beginning to tire, his chakra reserves were running low, and the constant battle against wave after wave of enemies was wearing him down. He couldn't keep up this pace forever. "Stay strong, Naruto," Sasuke called over the chaos, his voice sharp. "We can't afford to fall back now." But as Naruto looked around, he realized that the enemy was getting closer, surrounding them on all sides. They were outnumbered. The weight of the situation settled in his chest, and doubt started to creep into his mind. Would they be able to hold their ground? Would he be able to protect his friends? It was then that he saw it, the figure of an enemy ninja moving toward him, the sinister glint of a sword in their hand. They were fast, faster than anyone Naruto had faced, and before he could react, the figure was on him, blade raised high. In that instant, time seemed to slow. Naruto's heart raced, and he braced himself for the attack. He wasn't fast enough to dodge. But then, just as the sword came down, a figure leaped in front of him. "Kurenai! Mom!" Naruto shouted in horror, his eyes wide with fear. Kurenai, her expression a mask of determination, blocked the strike with her own body, her arms glowing with chakra as she deflected the attack. The sword hit, but instead of slicing through her, the chakra barrier absorbed the blow, and she pushed the enemy back with a powerful counterattack. Kurenai's movements were graceful but filled with raw strength. She wasn't just a mother, she was a warrior, a protector, and she was willing to do anything to shield her son from harm. "Stay back, Naruto," she ordered, her voice steady despite the danger. "This isn't your fight." But Naruto couldn't move. His heart was hammering in his chest as he watched his mother face down the enemy, her back to him, her presence unwavering in the face of danger. The enemy ninja advanced again, but Kurenai was quicker. With a swift movement, she launched a series of kunai, disarming the enemy in one fluid motion before kicking them to the ground. The enemy tried to rise, but Kurenai didn't let them. She moved with the precision of a master, striking with enough force to incapacitate them without taking a life. She was protecting Naruto, but she was also reminding him that strength was about more than just power. It was about knowing when to fight and when to show mercy. "Go!" Kurenai shouted as she turned to face Naruto, her eyes flashing with a fierce love and determination. "You need to keep moving. I'll cover you." Naruto stood frozen, his chest tight with emotion. He had always known his mother was strong. He had always known she would do anything to protect him. But watching her in this moment, putting herself between him and the danger, showed him something deeper. It wasn't just strength she had, it was an unwavering love, a force of nature that couldn't be broken. "I'm not leaving you," Naruto said, his voice fierce. He wasn't afraid. Not anymore. He had to fight alongside her. He couldn't allow her to do this alone. Kurenai's gaze softened, but there was no time for debate. "You're the future of Konoha, Naruto," she said softly. "The people you care about are counting on you. Now, go. I'll take care of this." Naruto nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. He could feel the power of his mother's words, her love for him radiating like an unbreakable shield. He wasn't alone, not now, not ever. And with that thought in mind, he turned back to the fight. As Naruto pushed forward, his energy surged. Kurenai's actions had inspired him, igniting a fire in his heart. He fought with renewed strength, unleashing his full power, cutting down enemies with a purpose he hadn't felt before. He could feel the Nine-Tails chakra, but this time, he didn't need it. His strength was coming from something deeper, his bond with his mother, his family, his village. As the battle raged on, Naruto's team began to turn the tide. Sasuke and Sakura fought side by side, supporting each other as they took down enemy after enemy. The battlefield shifted in their favor, and slowly, the enemy began to retreat. Kurenai stood at the center of the field, her breathing heavy but steady. She had protected her son, but she wasn't finished. There were still more enemies to deal with. And she would never stop fighting as long as there was breath in her body. Naruto fought beside her, his heart full of determination. His mother had shown him the true power of family, the strength that came from love, the strength that came from protecting those you cared about. He wasn't just fighting for Konoha. He was fighting for his family, for the people who had given him everything. The last of the enemies were driven out, and the battlefield fell eerily silent. Naruto looked around at the faces of his team, his friends, his family. They had done it. They had survived, not just because of their individual strength, but because they had each other. Naruto turned to Kurenai, his voice filled with gratitude and awe. "Mom. I don't know how to thank you. You saved me." Kurenai smiled, walking over to him and placing a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to thank me, Naruto. I would do it 1,000 times over. You're my son. And I'll always be here for you, no matter what." Naruto felt a deep warmth in his chest. The bond between them was unbreakable, and he knew that, no matter the challenges ahead, they would face them together. With his mother's strength and his father's guidance, and with the support of his friends, he would fight for the future of Konoha, and for the people he loved. Chapter 23, The Battle for the Future. The atmosphere over Konoha was charged with an electricity that could only signal one thing: the final battle. The battle that would determine the fate of the village and its people. The forces of Akatsuki had come in full force, launching an all-out assault on Konoha's defenses, and now Naruto and his team found themselves standing at the precipice of an unimaginable war. Naruto stood at the edge of the Hokage Tower, gazing out at the village. The familiar streets, the landmarks he had grown up with, all of it was about to be tested. The village had been his home, the place where he had forged his path as a ninja. Now, everything he had worked for was on the line. "This is it," Naruto murmured to himself, his heart pounding with anticipation. The enemy was closing in, and the last line of defense would fall upon his shoulders and those of his family, his friends, and his comrades. "You're thinking about the future, aren't you?" Kurenai's voice broke through his thoughts. She stepped beside him, her gaze sharp but filled with the same understanding that had always been there between them. Naruto nodded slowly. "I can't help but wonder what happens if we fail. If we don't win. I don't even want to think about it." Kurenai placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, her expression filled with pride. "You've come so far, Naruto. You've grown stronger in ways I never imagined. And this village? It's not just a place. It's a part of you, as you are a part of it. You fought for everyone here, today, they'll fight with you." Naruto turned to face her, a determined light in his eyes. "I'll protect them. I'll protect Konoha. I'll protect all of you." "Good," Kurenai said with a small, proud smile. "And remember, you don't have to do this alone. We're all with you." As the sun dipped low in the sky, Naruto gathered his team. Sasuke, Sakura, and the others stood with him, their faces grim but resolute. Kurenai was at his side, and Minato stood at the forefront, his expression stern but filled with quiet pride. The battle had already begun, and Akatsuki's forces were closing in from all directions. The village's defenses were strong, but this enemy wasn't something they could defeat with simple tactics. They were fighting an enemy that had planned for years, one whose strength came not only from its power but from its ability to divide and conquer. "We need to hold the line," Minato said, his voice firm. "Naruto, I know this won't be easy. But you've trained for this moment. You've trained for a future that is now at risk. The village depends on you, but more than that, you've shown that you can lead, and that's the key to victory." Naruto swallowed hard, the gravity of his father's words sinking in. "I won't let you down, Dad. I won't let Konoha down." Sasuke placed a hand on his shoulder. We're in this together, Naruto. No matter what happens, we fight as one. Right, Sakura added, her voice steady. We've got your back, always. The words from his friends, his teammates, filled Naruto with a sense of purpose. He wasn't alone in this battle. They were all in this together. The battle raged for hours, with the streets of Konoha becoming a battlefield. Explosions rocked the ground as Akatsuki's forces advanced. Ninjas from all over the village fought side by side, protecting the heart of the village. But despite their strength, they were struggling. Akatsuki was relentless, and their numbers seemed endless. Naruto's team fought fiercely, his chakra flaring as he led the charge. The Nine Tails chakra surged within him, but Naruto held it in check, his control growing with every passing moment. He couldn't afford to lose himself in its power, not now. The fight was bigger than his own struggles. But even with all the strength he had, there was a moment when Naruto was pushed to his limit. Akatsuki's forces were closing in, and the situation was beginning to look dire. He could feel his energy draining, his vision blurring as the intensity of the battle wore on. His mind flashed back to everything he had learned, to the lessons of his parents and the bond he shared with his team. Stay strong, Naruto, Kurenai's voice echoed in his mind. This battle is yours, but it's not yours alone. Remember your heart. That was when it happened. As he faced down an opponent stronger than any he had faced before, something shifted within him. The Nine Tails' power surged, but instead of overwhelming him, it flowed through him in perfect harmony. His heart and his chakra were in sync, and with that, he unleashed a new technique, a force that emanated from his very core, filled with determination, love, and the strength of the bonds he had formed. The blast of chakra exploded outward, sending enemies flying as Naruto stood at the center of the field, his eyes blazing with purpose. He wasn't just fighting for the village anymore. He was fighting for everyone he loved. For his family. For his friends. For his home. His chakra swirled around him, a shield of energy that kept Akatsuki's forces at bay. And in that moment, Naruto realized the truth, his true power wasn't in the Nine Tails. It wasn't in his strength or his will to fight. It was in the bonds he shared with those around him. That was what made him unstoppable. Kurenai and Minato stood by his side, their eyes filled with pride. You've done it, Naruto, Minato said, his voice filled with admiration. You've become the hero Konoha needs. Kurenai smiled, her eyes soft. You've always had this power, Naruto. It's your heart that makes you a true ninja. With the support of his team and the strength of his heart, Naruto led the final charge against Akatsuki's forces. The enemy was relentless, but so was Konoha. And in the end, it was the unity of the village, the strength of its people, and the bonds they shared that turned the tide. The battle was over. Akatsuki's forces had been defeated, and Konoha stood strong. The village was safe, but Naruto knew this victory was just the beginning. There would always be challenges ahead, but with his family, his friends, and the village by his side, he was ready for whatever came next. As the dust settled and the sun rose over Konoha, Naruto looked out over the village. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear, he was not alone. He had the strength of his family, the love of his friends, and the heart of a true ninja. And with that, he was ready to face whatever came next. Chapter 24, The Price of Peace. The sun had set over Konoha, casting long shadows over the village. It was a peaceful evening, the streets quiet as families returned to their homes, and yet, Naruto stood on the rooftop of the Hokage Tower, staring out into the horizon. The battle was over. Konoha had won, and the village was safe, for now. But a different kind of battle was beginning, one that could shape the future of the entire world. Naruto's heart was heavy with a decision he had to make, a decision that would require everything from him. The Akatsuki had been defeated, their plans thwarted, but there were still remnants of their organization scattered throughout the world. They were dangerous, and they wouldn't stop until they had finished what they started. Naruto knew what had to be done to prevent another war, to secure Konoha's future. But the cost of that peace would be his own sacrifice. He had been given a choice by the village leaders, by his father, and by the elders. The leaders of Akatsuki had been defeated, but their ideals had spread far and wide. In order to prevent the chaos from continuing, Konoha had made an agreement with the other villages to strike at the heart of the remaining factions, an operation that would require not just a leader, but a symbol. A symbol that would make the world think twice before challenging Konoha again. The decision was simple in theory: Naruto could stay as the face of the village, the hero of Konoha, and fight for peace. Or he could do what was needed, what would break the last remnants of Akatsuki's ideals. He could make a sacrifice that would ensure peace, that would ensure Konoha's future. The sacrifice was clear, and devastating. Naruto had been asked to give up his connection to the Nine Tails. To sever the bond between them, to release the power that had been within him for so long. It was the only way to guarantee that the remnants of Akatsuki, who still hunted him, would not use him as a weapon, that the village would be free of the shadow of the beast. But the Nine Tails had been with him for most of his life. It had caused him pain, but it had also given him strength. It had been a part of him, his companion, his burden, and now, he had to let go. How can I just let it go? Naruto whispered to himself, feeling the weight of the decision press down on him. The Nine Tails chakra stirred inside him, a reminder of the power that had both tormented and strengthened him. The beast was not just a monster to him anymore, it was a part of who he was, a part of his identity. But the more he thought about it, the clearer the truth became. Konoha needed him. The world needed him to be something more than the vessel of the Nine Tails. He had fought for peace his entire life, and now, in this moment, he had to prove that he was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for the future he had dreamed of. The door to the rooftop opened, and Naruto turned to see Kurenai walking toward him. She had been by his side through so much, and now, more than ever, her presence was a comfort. Her calm, steady demeanor gave him the strength to keep going. "Mom," Naruto's voice was heavy with emotion. "I don't know what to do. I've fought my whole life to protect the people I care about. But now, it feels like I'm going to lose everything. The Nine Tails. It's part of me. How can I just let it go?" Kurenai stepped forward, her eyes soft with understanding. She had seen Naruto struggle with this choice, seen the conflict within him. She knew how much this decision meant to him. "You've already given so much, Naruto," she said, her voice filled with love and pride. "And you've grown so much. The boy who once sought power out of anger is now the man who seeks peace with his heart. That's why you're ready for this." Naruto shook his head, tears welling up in his eyes. "I don't feel ready, Mom. I don't know if I can do it." Kurenai smiled gently, her hand reaching out to rest on his shoulder. "You don't have to be perfect, Naruto. You're not alone. You have your family, your team, your friends, and we will always be here for you. Your strength doesn't come from the Nine Tails, it never has. It comes from your heart, from the bonds you've formed." Naruto looked up at her, his gaze filled with doubt, but also with a flicker of hope. "Do you really think I can do it?" Kurenai nodded. "I know you can. You've already proven that you're stronger than anything you've faced before. This decision, it's not about your power. It's about your love for the people of this village, your love for the ones you care about. That's the strength you need." Later that evening, Minato found Naruto alone in the courtyard, his face a mask of resolve and uncertainty. The moment had come, and Minato knew what was weighing on his son's heart. He had seen the sacrifice Naruto was about to make, and while it was painful, Minato knew it was the right choice. "Son," Minato said quietly, stepping up beside him. "I know this isn't easy. But you've made the right decision. Naruto's voice was thick with emotion. I don't feel like it. It hurts. But I know it's the only way to make sure Konoha stays safe, that it has a future. The Nine Tails, it's always been a part of me. How do I just cut it out? Minato placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, offering the strength of a father's presence. You don't cut it out, Naruto. You transform it. Just like you've transformed yourself. You've already learned that you are more than your past, more than the power you wield. Your future is yours to shape, and the sacrifice you're making now is part of what will ensure that future. Naruto looked up at his father, his heart filled with a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. I've always wanted to be strong, Dad. But I realize now that being strong isn't just about having power. It's about making the hard choices, even when they hurt. Minato smiled softly, his voice full of pride. Exactly. And you've already become the man I always hoped you would be. You've shown me and everyone else that true strength comes from the heart. The ceremony was quiet, solemn. Naruto stood at the center, the village's leaders and his loved ones gathered around him. Kurenai, Minato, and his team were at his side, each of them offering silent support. The procedure would be painful, and the consequences unknown, but it was the only way to ensure peace, for Konoha, for the world. As the ritual began, Naruto closed his eyes, focusing on the one thing that had always guided him, the love he had for the people around him. The chakra of the Nine Tails surged inside him, but as the ritual continued, Naruto's heart steadied. The bond between him and the beast was severed, but it wasn't a loss, it was a transformation. He was not defined by the Nine Tails anymore. He was Naruto Uzumaki, and that was enough. When it was over, the village was safe. Peace had been secured, but at a cost. Naruto had given up the power that had defined him for so long, and in doing so, he had ensured the future of Konoha. Kurenai stepped forward, her eyes full of pride and love. You did it, Naruto. You became the man you were always meant to be. Minato stood beside her, his smile full of admiration. I'm proud of you, Naruto. You've proven that your strength lies not in the power you wield, but in the heart you have. Naruto looked out at the village, the weight of his decision settling in. The sacrifice was great, but so was the future. The village was safe. And for the first time in his life, Naruto felt truly free. Chapter 25, A Legacy of Love. The sun set over Konoha, casting a warm golden light over the village. Naruto stood at the edge of a cliff, looking out at the village he had fought so hard to protect. The weight of the years, the battles, the sacrifices, everything seemed to melt away in this moment of stillness. He wasn't just the son of the fourth Hokage or the vessel of the Nine Tails anymore. He was Naruto Uzumaki, the hero of Konoha, a man who had forged his own path, made his own choices, and created a legacy that was uniquely his. Behind him, the voices of his family and friends filled the air. Kurenai, Minato, and his team stood together, a quiet strength in their presence. They had always been by his side, guiding him, teaching him, and supporting him in every step of his journey. They were his foundation, the ones who helped him become who he was. Dad, Mom, Naruto whispered, his heart full of gratitude. The names of the people who had shaped him echoed in his mind, the love and lessons they had given him making him stronger than any enemy ever could. Minato stepped up beside him, his presence steady and comforting. You've come a long way, Naruto, he said, his voice filled with pride. When I first saw you, I knew you had the strength to protect Konoha. But what you've done goes beyond anything I could have imagined. You've built something that can't be taken away, something that comes from your heart. Naruto turned to face his father, meeting his gaze with a smile. I couldn't have done it without you, Dad. Without you and Mom. You showed me what it means to love and to protect. I've learned so much from both of you. Kurenai, standing a few steps behind Minato, stepped forward, her eyes filled with pride. You've always had that strength inside you, Naruto, she said, her voice soft but firm. I've watched you grow, and I've seen the man you've become. It wasn't the 9 tails that made you strong, it was your heart, your love for those around you, and your willingness to sacrifice everything for the people you care about. Naruto's chest swelled with emotion. His parents had given him everything, and now, as he stood on the precipice of his future, he understood that their legacy was not just about bloodlines or power. It was about love, family, and the bonds that held everything together. I'm at peace now, Naruto said, his voice steady. I've found my own way. I've made my own choices. I've learned from both of you, and I'm proud of the path I've walked. Minato placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, a gesture of comfort and pride. And we're proud of you, Naruto. You've not only proven your strength as a ninja, but you've proven your strength as a man. You've created your own legacy, one that will carry on for generations. You've built a future for Konoha, a future full of hope and peace. Naruto looked at his father, then at Kurenai, and finally at his team. Sasuke, Sakura, and the others were all there, standing strong, just like they always had. They had been through everything together, and their bond was unbreakable. They were his family, too. Thanks, everyone, Naruto said, his voice full of emotion. You've all been with me every step of the way. I couldn't have done this without you. Sasuke nodded. His usual stoic expression softened by a hint of respect. You've earned this, Naruto. Konoha is in good hands. Sakura smiled, her eyes shining with pride. You've become a true hero, Naruto. A hero not just for Konoha, but for all of us. Naruto felt a warmth in his chest, the love and support of his family and friends giving him the strength to face whatever came next. He had walked a long and difficult path, but in the end, he had found his purpose, his place in the world. He wasn't just the son of Minato or the vessel of the 9 tails. He was Naruto Uzumaki, and he had created a legacy of love and strength that would carry on for generations. As the sun sank beneath the horizon, casting its final rays over the village, Naruto stood tall, a symbol of everything he had fought for. The journey had been long, but it had been worth it. And now, as he looked at the village he loved, he knew that the future was bright. I won't let you down, Naruto whispered to the village, to his family, to everyone who had stood by him. I'll keep fighting for Konoha. For the future. And for all of you. With those words, Naruto turned toward the village, the future awaiting him. But no matter what came next, he knew that he wasn't alone. He had his family, his friends, and the strength of the bonds he had built. And that, more than anything, would guide him forward into the future. Epilogue, a new beginning. The village of Konoha thrived under the protection of its new generation. Naruto, now fully recognized as the hero of the village, had grown into the Hokage that Konoha had needed, a leader not defined by power or legacy, but by the love and dedication he had for the people of his village. Surrounded by his family and friends, Naruto continued to lead, but now, there was peace in his heart. He had found his place, his purpose, and the legacy of love that had been passed down to him. And with that, he knew that the future was in good hands. The end to my story.